Chapter 30:21. Tian was still calm, but his expression did not look good. He could feel that, if the seal in his body were to explode, it would be enough to kill him in an instant. Fellow Heavens Chosen, do not panic. Just as everyone was panicking, the Heavens Chosen Saint Envoy spoke in a loud voice. The pressure in your body is caused by a seal called the Heavens Chosen Seal. As long as you can reach the third level of the Heavens Chosen platform within 3 months, the Heavens Chosen Seal will be automatically removed. If not, after 3 months, the Heavens Chosen Seal will automatically activate and kill you instantly without any pain. All the Heavens Chosen heard the Heavens Chosen Saint Envoy's words, and their faces darkened. They did not expect the Heavens Chosen Seal to be so overbearing. It seemed that even if they had to risk their lives, they would still have to reach the third level. 3 months? Tian was stunned, but he was more concerned about the time. He did not expect a small Heavens Chosen platform to take 3 months to climb. It seemed that he had underestimated the Heavens Chosen platform. Everyone, get on the platform! Then, the Heavens Chosen Saint Envoy spoke again. As soon as he finished speaking, countless figures moved at the same time, flying toward the Heavens Chosen platform. I don't want to die, I want to reach the third level. All of you, get out of my way, let me go first. A bunch of trash, get out of my way. In an instant, the void was in chaos. Many people were fighting each other in order to reach the Heavens Chosen platform as soon as possible. Seeing this, Tian could not help but frown and shake his head helplessly. The Heavens Chosen platform would only be open for 3 months, so there was no need to fight over this period of time. He was not in a hurry, and instead carefully observed from the side. Many Heavens Chosen wanted to take advantage of the situation and forcefully rushed toward the top of the Heavens Chosen platform. However, when they got close to the space above the Heavens Chosen platform, they were controlled by a horrifying force and lost control of their bodies, falling straight down. TQR1 Many warriors, after falling off the Heavens Chosen Tao platform, immediately became crippled. Some even fell to their death. It was hard to imagine that these demi-saint Heavens Chosen platform would fall to their deaths. It seems that the Heavens Chosen platform seal is very overbearing. Everyone has to start from the first step. Tian shook his head and smiled helplessly. Half a day later, when most of the Heavens Chosen had entered the Heavens Chosen platform, Tian finally moved. Shuer, Fengqi, and the others followed Tian closely, preparing to enter the Heavens Choice Tao platform with him. Tian. However, right at this moment, a gentle voice rang out, and an alluring figure appeared beside Tian. Eyebrows furrowed, Tian called out coldly to Yuluo, "Your Highness, Holy Daughter. Tian, I'm going to accompany you on the stage. You won't refuse, will you?" Yuluo smiled faintly, her big eyes sparkling, making her look a little mischievous. Tian raised his eyebrows and said coldly, "Your Highness, I have a companion. You'd better find someone else to join you." "Why do you have to keep me at a distance?" Yuluo was not angry. Instead, she smiled and said, "Besides, I'm a reserved person. I won't force you to do anything. What are you so afraid of? Suit yourself." Tian smiled helplessly and decided to leave Yuluo alone. Then, he moved and arrived at the bottom of the first level of the Heavens Chosen platform. With one step, he landed firmly on the platform. After that, Shuer and the others landed on the ground. It was then that Tian realized how terrifying the Heavens Chosen platform was. He could feel that not only his Yuan meridians were being suppressed, but even his star power was being suppressed to a certain extent. His legs felt as if they were filled with thousands of pounds of lead sand. Even taking a step was difficult. Moreover, the void around him was filled with a terrifying power. It was as if an invisible giant hand was tightly wrapping around everyone, causing them to breathe rapidly. No wonder it takes 3 months to climb the Heavens Chosen platform. Nie Tian took a deep breath and his complexion looked better. He looked up at the endless stairs and thought to himself. Under such a situation, climbing the 9 levels of the platform with close to 100,000 steps was hopeless. It seemed that the heavens-chosen platform not only tested a cultivator's talent and strength, but also their temperament. There were so many steps to climb one by one. If one was not determined, it would be impossible. Damn! This joke is getting out of hand. Feng Qi raised his head and looked up. His heart felt cold as he swallowed his saliva and said, "The black and yellow trials are still waiting for us. Let's start." Nie Tian smiled and said, of course, he knew that Feng Qi was just venting his frustration. From what he saw, Feng Qi was not only talented in martial arts, but his determination was also indestructible. Next, Nie Tian and the others started climbing the stairs one by one. The first level of the platform had 9,999 steps. Nie Tian and the others spent half a day climbing. Their speed was considered fast. Many people had only climbed a few hundred steps in half a day. Nie Tian wasn't in a hurry. He just needed to climb up slowly. Actually, with his speed, he could be even faster. When they arrived at the second level, they could feel the pressure on their bodies increase by multiple fold. Next, Nie Tian and the others spent a day climbing the second level and stepping onto the third level. The moment they stepped onto the third level, the Heaven's Chosen seal disappeared. The Heaven's Chosen envoy was right. As long as the Chosen Ones stepped onto the third level, the Heaven's Chosen seal would automatically disappear. Soon, a month later, on the Heaven's Chosen platform, most of the Chosen Ones were still below the 5th level. Less than 10% of them had reached the 5th level. Why are the Chosen Ones this time so weak? Up in the air, the Heaven's Chosen envoy frowned as he looked at the Heaven's Chosen platform, his face full of dissatisfaction. In the past, a fifth of the Chosen Ones would reach the 5th level in a month's time. But this time, less than 1/10 of the Heaven's Chosen were able to reach the 5th level. This made the envoy feel disappointed. However, the few figures at the top caught the attention of the Heaven's Choice Saint envoy. The figures had already stepped onto the 8th platform. 2 of them were only a few steps away from the 9th platform. 2 figures, one male and one female, seemed to be leading the pack. They were the Juying Temple's Star Destroyer Yen Destroyer and the Rakshasa Saintess of the 10 Directions Rakshasa Temple, Yuluo. Yuluo had originally been with Nie Tian and the others, but Nie Tian and the others were too slow. She lost her patience and split up. Nie Tian, with your talent you shouldn't be this slow. This is the Heaven's Choice platform, you have to race against time. Are you purposely slowing down because of your useless friends? At that moment, Yuluo lowered her head and looked at Nie Tian. She frowned and thought to herself. After a month, Nie Tian had only reached the 6th level. Yuluo was disappointed. She felt that Nie Tian's talent, even if it was not as good as hers, would not be too far off. Otherwise, the Star Origin Stone would not have chosen Nie Tian. But now, Nie Tian was moving very slowly. He was still crawling on the 6th level. But she saw that Nie Tian's face was calm. He had a strange smile on his face, as if he was very excited. She was not wrong. Nie Tian was indeed very excited. The reason Nie Tian was moving so slowly was not because he was waiting for Feng Qi and the others. On the contrary, Feng Qi and the others were waiting for him. Chapter 30:22. After a month, Nie Tian and the others reached the 6th level. Among all the Chosen Ones, to be able to reach the 6th level was already very impressive. But with the talent of Nie Tian and the others, if they gave it their all, they would definitely reach more than the 6th level. The reason why Nie Tian and the others climbed so slowly was because they had another motive: to let the Fat Cat and the Ghost Emperor solve the structure of the entire platform. Actually, Nie Tian did not know why the Fat Cat and the Ghost Emperor wanted to solve the structure of the Heaven's Choice platform. The fat cat told him that if they could solve the Heaven's Choice platform, they would give Nye Tian a surprise that was beyond his imagination. Nye Tian was very curious as to what this surprise would be. But the fat cat and the ghost emperor did not explain. They were very mysterious. But he guessed that the surprise that could make the fat cat and the ghost emperor so excited was definitely no small matter. Nye Tian, let the others go up first. There's no need to wait for you. You still have other things to do. At this time, the little fat cat's voice rang out and said to Nye Tian. Nye Tian nodded. He had been dragging the others and felt very embarrassed. Feng Qi, you guys go first. There is no need to wait for me. Nye Tian looked at Feng Qi and the others and said calmly. Why? Feng Qi was stunned and confused. I have other things to do. Nye Tian smiled and said, Don't worry. I will definitely catch up. Okay. Feng Qi thought about it and nodded. On the 6th level, he already felt a huge pressure. If he continued like this, he might not even be able to reach the 9th level, let alone the black and yellow test. As for Nye Tian, Feng Qi believed that with his talent and strength, there was no need to worry. Feng Qi firmly believed that if there was someone who could ascend the heaven staircase of the black-yellow trials, it would definitely be Nye Tian. Then, Feng Qi, Si Xiaoye, and Emo sped up. But Cher still followed Nye Tian and had no intention of leaving Nye Tian behind. Shuer you. Nye Tian frowned and looked at Shuer. Just as he was about to say something, she interrupted him. No matter what you do, Nye Tian, Shuer said indifferently, her clear and resolute eyes glittering. I'll be with you. It's good that Shuelas is here. What we're going to do next, you might not be able to do it alone. Nye Tian still wanted to say something, but little fat cat spoke first. Fat, what do you want me to do next? Nye Tian asked curiously with a frown. Nye Tian, do you know why I and the Ghost Emperor want to deconstruct the structure of the Tao platform? Fat cat did not answer Nye Tian's question, but asked him a question instead. I don't know. Nye Tian shook his head. Fat cat and the Ghost Emperor did not tell him, so how could he know? The Heaven's Chosen Tao platform contains an enormous amount of Tao power. This Tao power is a type of sacred power. Fat cat smiled strangely and said, As long as we can deconstruct the structure of the Tao platform, we will be able to find the place where the power of the Tao platform is gathered. Then, we will be able to absorb all the power of the Heaven's Chosen Tao platform. What? Nye Tian's eyes narrowed when he heard Fat Cat's words, and he almost cried out in shock. He never thought that Fat Cat and the Ghost Emperor were deconstructing the Heaven's Chosen Tao platform to absorb the Tao power of the Heaven's Chosen Tao platform. This idea, this surprise, was too shocking. Nye Tian did not know how much Tao power was contained in the Heaven's Chosen Tao platform, but he could guess that it was definitely an unimaginable amount of power. The moment the Heaven's Chosen Tao platform was opened, a ripple of a boundary had left a Heaven's Chosen seal on the bodies of tens of thousands of Heaven's Chosen. It was not hard to imagine how much power was contained in the Heaven's Chosen Tao platform. Nye Tian was very confused. Even if Fat Cat and the Ghost Emperor deconstructed the structure of the Tao platform, how could the power of the Tao platform be absorbed? Nye Tian was only a second-stage demi-saint, so it was obvious that he could not absorb such an enormous amount of power. Nye Tian, you won't be able to absorb this Taoist magic energy, but you have something with you that can. The little fat cat guessed Nye Tian's doubts and said with a chuckle. Nye Tian was stunned at first, but then he thought of something. His eyes were burning, and his lips twitched as he murmured, 9 superbs. If there was something around Nye Tian that could withstand the power of the Heaven's Chosen Tao platform, it would be the 9 superbs. Yes, the 9 superbs. Fat Cat nodded and smiled, and said excitedly, Now, there is a sacred realm seed in the 9 superbs. If it could absorb the power of the Heaven's Chosen Tao platform, it would not take long for the 9 superbs to become a real sacred realm. This. Nie Tian sucked in a breath of cold air, and his whole body went stiff. Fat Cat's idea was so crazy that it was completely beyond his imagination. This surprise was really beyond his imagination. Nie Tian, we have a problem. However, the next moment, Fat Cat's tone became heavy and she said, "The complexity of the Heaven's Chosen Tao platform is beyond my and the Ghost Emperor's expectations. We must have missed something. So, we have to return to the first level and deconstruct it again." Nie Tian was stunned and speechless. He had spent a whole month to climb to the 6th level, and now Fat Cat was asking him to go back to the first level. "Nie Tian, I'm afraid what you will have to do next is not as simple as returning to the first level. We will need you to walk around every level." Fat Cat ignored Nie Tian's speechlessness and continued. "QL 11-inch this." Nie Tian's face froze and his whole body froze. If it was just asking him to go back to the first level and climb it again, it would not be difficult. However, if he had to walk around every level, it would be very troublesome. After all, the Heaven's Chosen Tao platform had a radius of hundreds of thousands of meters. Walking around every level would take a very long time. Most importantly, Nie Tian was greatly suppressed on the Heaven's Chosen Tao platform. Every step he took was a huge pressure. "Nie Tian, we don't have much time. Let's start now." Fat Cat said in a deep voice, "The 9 levels are too big. It will be difficult for you to walk around them in the remaining 2 months. So, you have to cooperate with Cher. Give Jiuji to Shuiyan. I will find a way to communicate with her." Nie Tian calmed down slightly and let out a long sigh. He nodded and handed Jiuji to Cher. The Ghost Emperor could not exist without Nie Tian, but the Fat Cat could leave Nie Tian. Next, Fat Cat followed Cher, and the Ghost Emperor followed Nie Tian. The two of them would decipher the structure of every level. After a while, Nie Tian and Cher started walking down the platform. When the Heaven's Chosen Ones saw this, they were all shocked. Soon, the look in their eyes changed. They looked at Nie Tian and Shui, as if they were looking at idiots, and they began to roar with laughter. "Are these two idiots? Why are they running down? They are walking down the platform? What a pair of idiots! These two are talented, but their brains were kicked by donkeys." Chapter 30-23. Nie Tian and Cher's abnormal behavior caused the other Heaven's Chosen Ones to laugh at them. But they didn't mind at all and continued to walk downwards. On the Tao platform above, Feng Qi and the others frowned when they saw Nie Tian and Shui descending to the ground. Their expressions turned ugly. "Feng Qi, what's going on with Nie Tian and Cher?" Si Xiaoye asked curiously. "Boss Nie, this is the Heaven's Choice platform. What's going on?" Feng Qi was also puzzled. Eyebrows furrowed, Emo muttered, "Did Nie Tian discover something?" Based on his understanding of Nie Tian, the latter wouldn't be stupid enough to run around the Heaven's Choice platform. "You idiot, what are you doing?" On the 9th level, the Rakshasa Holy Daughter, Yuluo, looked at Nie Tian and Shui. Her beautiful eyes flickered with a mixture of anger and amusement. She had no idea what Nie Tian was doing. Is that kid an idiot?" Not far away from Yuluo, Shadowfire Ruinous Star laughed cold and mocked. Why would the Star Origin Stone choose an idiot as its master? Nie Tian's current actions were extremely idiotic in everyone's eyes. Watching Nie Tian and Shui, many of the Doom envoys laughed so hard that they almost went crazy. This pair of Heaven's Chosen Ones are really idiot. There are only 2 months left before the platform closes. They climbed up to the 6th level with great difficulty, but they climbed back up again. Are they kidding me? I've been a messenger for so many years, but I've never seen such a weird Heaven's Chosen One. This is really refreshing my knowledge. These two's brains are different from ordinary people. What a waste of talent. The messengers discussed and laughed so hard that they couldn't stand straight. The happiest one was Thousand Illusion Granny. She was originally worried that Nie Tian would get a high score on the Heaven's Chosen Tao platform. But now, she felt that Nye Tian would be lucky to pass. Nye Tian, you're really courting death. Granny Thousand Illusions looked at Nye Tian and laughed sinisterly in her heart. On the other side, Feng Shu Tong stared at Nye Tian with his small eyes wide open and his face ashen. He was obviously very angry. He hadn't been able to figure out why Nye Tian was moving so slowly. But now, Nye Tian had walked down from the 6th level. This made him want to jump up and kill him. Nye Tian, just what are you doing? Feng Shu Tong shouted in his heart, his beard straightened. Initially, he thought that with Nye Tian's talent, even if he could not pass the 3 tests, it would not be difficult for him to climb to the 8th or 9th level. But now, he was a little worried that Nye Tian might be eliminated. The people of Juying Palace and Omnidirectional Rakshasa Temple had been watching Nye Tian. When they saw the scene on the Dao platform, they couldn't believe their eyes. What was Nye Tian doing? Interesting. The Heaven's Chosen Envoy looked at the strange scene and couldn't help but laugh. He murmured, I have presided over the Heaven's Chosen Dao platform dozens of times, but I have never seen such a strange Heaven's Chosen. Are these two using a special method to attract my attention? In the past, there had always been some scheming Heaven's Chosen who would do some outrageous things to attract the attention of the Heaven's Chosen Envoy. For example, they would release their bloodline power on the Heaven's Chosen platform to suppress other Heaven's Chosen. They would even attack the Heaven's Chosen platform in an attempt to destroy it. But this was the first time Nye Tian and Cher had done something like this. It had to be said that the Heaven's Chosen Envoy felt that their method was very novel. He remembered it immediately. At this time, Nye Tian and Cher didn't care about the reactions of the others. The two of them were extremely fast. They were practically diving downwards. Nye Tian knew that he didn't have much time left. He had to race against time. He didn't have time to care about what others thought of him. Half a day later, Nye Tian's figure appeared at the bottom of the 1st Dao platform. Cher's figure appeared at the bottom of the 2nd Dao platform. Next, they had to walk a circle around the Dao platform before they could start climbing. QL 11-inch Nye Tian, let's begin, said the Ghost Emperor. He was ready. Yes. Nye Tian nodded and started walking along the Dao platform. His action once again attracted everyone's attention. Everyone thought that he would return to the Dao platform below and start climbing again. Who would have thought that he would start walking along the Dao platform? Damn! Not only is this kid an idiot, he's an idiot. Is he crazy? This is the first time I've seen such a stupid person in my life. The world of idiots is indeed not something ordinary people can understand. As the crowd discussed among themselves, Nye Tian had already become a laughingstock. Such a weirdo. How rare. The Heaven's Chosen Envoy looked at Nye Tian and couldn't help but laugh. At this time, he was no longer paying attention to Yu Luo, Shadowfire Ruinous Star, and the others. His eyes were completely attracted to Nye Tian. Because Nye Tian's actions were too unexpected. Nye Tian, stop playing around. Feng Shu Tong was so angry that he was about to vomit blood. His face looked worse than if he had eaten sh*t. But Nye Tian didn't care about the others at all. He quickly walked along the Dao platform. However, even if he didn't climb, Nye Tian still felt a great pressure from running on the Dao platform. At the same time, Cher's figure also started moving, walking along the Dao platform on the 2nd level. One day later, Nye Tian walked one round along the Dao platform on the 1st level and returned to the starting point. At the same time, Cher walked one round along the Dao platform on the 2nd level. Everyone stared at Nye Tian and Shui, as if they were about to lose their minds. Although they couldn't understand what Nye Tian and Cher were doing, they could see that their talent and strength were really strong. They were strong beyond imagination. Nye Tian and Cher didn't care about the others' reactions and started climbing. 3 days later, Nye Tian's figure appeared at the bottom of the Dao platform on the 3rd level. Cher's figure appeared at the bottom of the Dao platform on the 4th level. Then, Nye Tian started walking along the Dao platform again. In the blink of an eye, 1 month passed. Nye Tian and Cher's figures appeared at the bottom of the Dao platform on the 9th level at the same time. In 1 month, not only did the two of them walk 1 round along the 8th level, but they also successfully reached the 9th level. At this time, the way everyone looked at Nye Tian and Cher was completely different. The previous coldness and mockery had turned into shock and admiration. Regardless of what Nye Tian and Cher had been doing before, their talent and strength were definitely top-notch. One must know that even Yu Luo and Shadowflame Ruinous Star had taken a month to climb to the 9th level. But the two of them hadn't walked 1 round along the Dao platform. In comparison, Nye Tian and Cher's talent was even stronger than Yu Luo and Shadowfire Destroyers. The Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy looked at Nye Tian and Cher, his eyes trembling. He was so shocked that he couldn't speak. Chapter 30-24. Stepping into the Heaven's Path. Looking at Nye Tian and Cher, the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy couldn't help but be pleasantly surprised. He had a feeling that Nye Tian and Cher would definitely be able to pass the 3 tests. Nye Tian, in particular, had a power inside of him that even he couldn't see through, which was very strange. That silver-haired kid might be able to make it to the Heaven's Path. The Heaven's Choice Envoy's gaze locked onto Nye Tian, his eyes flashing with excitement. Ha ha ha, I'm not dreaming, am I? On the other side, Feng Shutong seemed to have gone mad as he laughed maniacally. He knew that Nye Tian's talent was strong, but he had never expected it to be this strong. At the same time, the people of Juying Shrine and Decimo Rakshasa Temple were all stunned, their expressions complicated. Qianyu, Huanchu, and the others finally understood why the Star Origin Stone had chosen Nye Tian. It was because Nye Tian's talent was too terrifying. At the same time, on the Heaven's Choice platform, how is this possible? Yulua looked at Nye Tian, her beautiful face filled with shock. Her eyes trembled slightly, unable to believe what she was seeing. She had never imagined that Nye Tian would be able to reach the 9th level in such a way. How can this kid's talent be so strong? On the other side, Shadowflame Ruinous Star's face was somber. He looked at Nye Tian with a murderous look. He had previously thought that Nye Tian was an idiot, but now he realized that he was the real idiot. He and Yulua had used 2 months to reach the top of the 9th level. However, Nye Tian had reached the 9th Dao pillar in less than a month, in such a bizarre way, which was simply unbelievable. Shadowflame Ruinous Star, do you still think that Nye Tian is an idiot? Yulua looked at Shadowflame Ruinous Star and asked him with a cold smile. That's just sensationalism. Shadowflame Army Breaker laughed coldly and said, He's only doing this to attract the Divine Envoy's attention. In my opinion, he won't be able to reach the Black-Yellow 3 trials at all. After saying that, his figure began to move, climbing up the stairs. He was only a few dozen steps away from the Black-Yellow 3 stages. As long as he walked past these few dozen steps, he would be able to absorb the Black-Yellow Qi. He felt that even though Nye Tian's climbing speed was faster than his, it was still unknown whether he could reach the Black and Yellow passes. The corners of Yuluo's mouth twitched, but she did not speak. Instead, she said in her heart, Nye Tian, I look forward to the moment you step into the 3 trials of Black and Yellow. Then, she followed closely behind Shadowflame Ruinous Star. At this moment, there were less than 100 Heaven's Chosen Ones on the 9th level platform. Most of them were on the lower half of the platform. After all, to be able to reach the 9th level of the platform meant that one's martial arts talent was as rare as a phoenix's feather or a unicorn's horn. Cher, you go up first. Qianye is waiting for you up there, Nye Tian said calmly as he looked at a familiar face on the platform. Rui Qianyu was also on the 9th level, and she was on the upper half of the platform. Her height was second only to Yu Luo and Shadowflame Army Breaker. Nie Tian could tell that Rui Qianyu was not climbing with all her might. It was obvious that she was secretly watching him. There was only the last level left. Nie Tian could walk one round by himself, and Cher could continue climbing. Okay. Cher looked at Nie Tian, nodded slightly, and handed 9 Extreme to him. Nie Tian took 9 Extreme and nodded with a smile as he watched Cher climb up. Then, he took a deep breath and started walking along the 9th level platform. It took Nie Tian 3 days to walk one round along the 9th level platform. Then, he started climbing higher. There are more than 20 days left. Only the last level is left. I should be able to reach the black and yellow tests, Nie Tian murmured with a smile as he looked at the top of the platform. Fat Cat and Ghost Emperor did not speak, which meant that the deconstruction of the structure of the platform was going smoothly. Soon, 5 days had passed. Nie Tian arrived at the top of the 9th level platform. There were only 100 steps left before he reached the black and yellow test. He could feel that the pressure of the restriction on the 9th level platform was much stronger than that on the 8th level platform. The higher he climbed, the stronger the restriction. At this time, with every step he took, he was so tired that he panted. No wonder Yu Luo and the others had not reached the black and yellow tests after spending more than a month on the 9th level platform. Look, someone is going to reach the black and yellow test. At this moment, the terminus messengers outside the platform suddenly became excited and shouted. Nie Tian's pupils constricted as he looked up into the sky. Sure enough, he saw a figure leaping into the air and entering the black-yellow pass. This figure was none other than the army destroyer of the Juying Shrine, Shadowfire Destroyer. That person looks like someone from the Juying Shrine. He's really powerful. He actually reached the black and yellow tests before the Rakshasa Holy Maiden. Outside the platform, the crowd cheered, their eyes trembling. Ha ha! I, Shadowfire Destroyer, am the most talented person. Even the Rakshasa Holy Maiden is inferior to me. Shadowfire Destroyer stepped onto the black and yellow tests and laughed wildly. His attitude was arrogant and disdainful. Shadow Flame Destruction of the Army, stepping onto the 3 passes of the black-yellow pass, is only the beginning. It's not certain who will be able to have the last laugh. Right at this moment, an indifferent voice sounded. Shadowfire Destroyer's eyes narrowed as he saw Yu Luo leap up and land steadily on the black and yellow tests. Humph! Shadowfire Destroyer looked at Yu Luo and laughed coldly. So what if you reach the black and yellow tests? You're still 1 step behind me. Yu Luo smiled faintly. Her gentle lips curled into a cold smile. She couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with Shadowfire Destroyer. Her goal wasn't just the black and yellow tests, but the highest point of the black and yellow tests, the black and yellow sky stairwell. She really wanted to know what the extra reward the Saint Envoy was talking about was. At that moment, the crowd outside the platform was boiling with excitement. 2 Heaven's Chosen Ones had almost reached the black and yellow tests at the same time. This was an extremely rare sight. The people of the Juying Shrine and the Rakshasa Temple were very happy. After all, their people had reached the black and yellow test. These 2 warriors are indeed talented. They have a chance of becoming the Heaven's Chosen Stars this time. The Saint Envoy looked at Yu Luo and Shadowfire Destroyer and smiled satisfactorily. Next, let's see how well they can understand the black and yellow chi. The Heaven's Chosen platform didn't just test a warrior's talent, strength, willpower, etc. It also tested a warrior's ability to understand power. Black and yellow chi was a type of saint power. In the following black and yellow tests, one had to use black and yellow chi in order to climb up. The black and yellow tests had 3 steps: the sky stairwell, the earth stairwell, and the human stairwell. Each step was 100 meters tall. Under the pressure of the powerful restriction, it was impossible to leap over a flight of stairs that was over 100 meters high. Chapter 30-25. Shocking the world, Yulua and Shadowfire ruinous star's ascension to the top of the black and yellow steps caused the crowd to boil over. However, it was hard to say how far they could go next. After all, there was not much time left. There were only about 20 days left. Every step of the black and yellow steps was more difficult than the 9th level, so it would not be easy to climb higher. You too, next, you need to focus on comprehending the black and yellow chi and use it to condense the black and yellow seed. Then, use your bloodline power to stimulate the black and yellow seeds to grow into a black and yellow tree. With the help of the black and yellow tree, you can ascend the black and yellow step. The Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy was very excited as he loudly explained to Yulua and Shadowfire Ruinous Star. "Thank you, Lord Saint Envoy." Yulua and Shadowfire Ruinous Star both bowed in gratitude. Next, the two did not hesitate. They sat down cross-legged and began to comprehend the black and yellow chi. The black and yellow steps were filled with thick black and yellow chi. Martialists could absorb the black and yellow chi and convert it into their own strength. However, the black and yellow chi was sacred power, and all the Heaven's chosen ones were realm martialists. Their comprehension and absorption of sacred power depended entirely on their talent. "I wonder how long it will take for these two to condense the black and yellow seeds," the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy muttered with a faint smile. The record for the myriad domains Heaven's Choice path was that someone had condensed a black and yellow seed in 3 days. Yulua and Shadowfire Ruinous Star's talent was not bad. Hopefully, they would be able to condense the black and yellow seeds within 5 days. The commotion caused by Yulua and Shadowfire Ruinous Star's ascension quickly died down. Next, everyone's gaze fell on the others. At this time, more than 10 figures had already reached the highest level of the 9th level. They included Rui Qianyu, Cher, Feng Qi, Emo, 2 masked martialists from the 10 Directions Rakshasa Temple, 2 Juying Temple martialists, and several other martialists. Si Xiaoya had been left behind. She was already behind Nie Tian. Actually, her talent was not any weaker than Feng Qi's, but not long ago, her mark of the heavenly path had shed heavenly blood tears. Even now, she had not recovered. This had greatly affected all aspects of her martial body. This time, it was basically impossible for her to enter the 3 trials of black and yellow. 1 day later, Rui Qianyu and Cher stepped on the 3 tests at the same time, which caused a burst of cheers. The two of them did not have much of a reaction. They sat down cross-legged and began to comprehend the heaven and earth chi. Following this, a day later, Feng Qi, Emo, and the others also arrived at the 3 black-yellow trials. Great! That's great! Outside the Heaven's Choice platform, the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy was extremely excited. He was grinning from ear to ear. He hadn't expected that there would be more than 10 martial artists who would enter the 3 black and yellow gates in this Heaven's Chosen End. It seemed like he was wrong before. This time's Heaven's Chosen One was in a good position. The Terminator messengers were also very excited. To be able to see so many Heaven's Chosen Ones appearing at the 3 stages of black and yellow at the same time was a great enjoyment. Alright. At this moment, a figure suddenly stood up with a faint smile on her face. She raised her hand and a black and yellow vortex the size of a baby's fist appeared on her palm. Rakshas's Saintess. Everyone exclaimed when they saw the figure who had suddenly stood up. The Heaven and Earth Seed. The Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy's eyes widened. He stared at the vortex on Yuluo's palm and couldn't help but exclaim. He had never expected Yuluo to condense the Heaven and Earth Seed so quickly. 2 days. In just 2 days, Yuluo had condensed the Heaven and Earth Seed. This speed had far exceeded the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy's expectations. Previously, the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy's record was to condense the Heaven and Earth Seed in 3 days. Yuluo had actually shortened this record by 1 day. However, the next moment, the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy felt a little strange. He felt that with Yuluo's talent, she shouldn't have been able to condense the Heaven and Earth Seed so quickly. The Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy sent out his divine sense, and was stunned for a moment. Then, he smiled and mumbled to himself, "So this girl is practicing the sacred world martial technique. No wonder her comprehension of the heaven and earth chi is so strong." The heaven and earth chi was a type of sacred energy. The devouring domain technique that Yuluo practiced was the sacred world martial technique. Thus, it was most suitable to absorb sacred energy. Therefore, compared to others, Yuluo had a natural advantage. Yuluo's gaze swept across the Shadowfire ruinous star, who was still cultivating with his eyes closed. She smiled coldly and prepared to use her bloodline power to activate the heaven and earth seed. However, at this moment, another figure stood up from the three trials of black and yellow. Yuluo looked at the figure who had suddenly stood up. Her beautiful eyes couldn't help but tremble in surprise. The person who had stood up was none other than Cher. However, Cher had reached the heaven and earth stages a day later than Yuluo. Could it be that she had also condensed the heaven and earth seed? Cher's face was calm. She stretched out her jade-like hand and a black and yellow vortex appeared on her palm. It was the heaven and earth seed. How is this possible? Yuluo looked at the heaven and earth seed in Cher's hand and was stunned. She had never dreamed that Cher would actually condense the heaven and earth seed. Moreover, the heaven and earth seed in Cher's hand was extremely large. It was several times larger than Yuluo's heaven and earth seed. This. Outside the Heaven's Choice platform, the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy gasped when he saw the scene on the platform. He was so shocked that he couldn't speak. What did he see? He couldn't believe his eyes. The heaven and earth seed. Another heaven and earth seed had appeared. The Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy was still in shock when Yuluo broke the record. Who knew that he would see an even greater shock? The heaven and earth seed that Cher had condensed was even larger. The heaven and earth chi was even purer, and she had spent even less time to condense it. This was too unbelievable. To condense such a high-quality heaven and earth seed within a day, let alone the warriors from the other realms, even the martial arts geniuses from the sacred realms could not do this. Only now did the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy realize how terrifyingly talented this strange girl was. This girl's talent is shocking. The Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy's eyes trembled as he exclaimed in his heart. Cher's expression was extremely calm. Actually, the reason why Cher could condense the heaven and earth seed so quickly was not because her talent was much higher than Yuluo and the others. It was because of the heavenly sacred heart in her body. The heavenly sacred heart was a natural treasure. It had a natural ability to comprehend the heaven and earth chi. This allowed Cher to condense the heaven and earth seed so quickly. As for the others, including Rui Qianyu, they were still in the midst of comprehending it. No, I will not allow you to surpass me. At this moment Yuluo had finally calmed down. Her eyes darkened and she did not wait any longer. She immediately released her bloodline power and injected it into the heaven and earth seed. Pop, pop, pop. The next moment, as her bloodline power flowed into the heaven and earth seed, the heaven and earth seed in her hand began to sprout. Very quickly, it turned into a small sapling that was full of vitality. This process was similar to Huayuru's seed of hell from before. However, immediately after, Yuluo looked at Cher. Her eyes trembled and she let out a cry of surprise. However, she could not speak and her whole body froze on the spot. Chapter 30-26. Seeking Death. In the blink of an eye, Cher's heaven and earth seed had grown into a 1-meter-tall heaven and earth tree. Yuluo was petrified. At this moment, the person who was even more shocked than Yuluo was the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy. At this moment, the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy's eyes were trembling. He could not believe what he was seeing. He knew very well how difficult it was for a heaven and earth seed to sprout. Moreover, before the heaven and earth tree reached 10 meters, its growth was extremely slow. Even the most powerful martial arts genius would need a day or even several days to grow a heaven and earth seed to a 1-meter tall tree. However, such a task wasn't difficult for Shui-Er at all. How is this possible? The Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy was completely confused. He even suspected that he was dreaming. What Cher was doing could only be done by the top geniuses of the sacred world. When the others saw how shocked the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy was, they realized how terrifying Cher was. Immediately, they looked at Cher with shock and admiration. After a long time, the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy calmed down and said in shock, "It seems that this time, the Heaven's Choice Star Chief will definitely be this girl." The Heaven's Choice Star Chief was the number one chosen by the Heaven's Choice Star Chief. The Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy believed that with Cher's talent, she had already locked onto the Heaven's Choice Star Chief. Following this, Cher did not stop. Instead, she continuously released her bloodline power to stimulate the growth of the Heaven and Earth tree. In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed. Cher's Heaven and Earth tree had already grown to a height of nearly 100 meters. Soon, it would reach the Heaven and Earth stairway. As for Yu Luo's Heaven and Earth tree, it was only about a meter tall. The difference between the two of them was like the difference between heaven and earth. At this moment, Shadowfire Ruinous Star and Rui Qianyu stood up one after another. They had also condensed their heaven and earth seed. However, the speed at which Shadowfire Ruinous Star and Rui Qianyu stimulated their heaven and earth seeds was not fast. In fact, they were even slower than Yu Luo. Following this, another 5 days passed. Cher had already arrived at the Heaven and Earth staircase. Moreover, she had condensed a second Heaven and Earth seed on the Earth staircase. She continued to stimulate the Heaven and Earth seed as she advanced towards the Heaven and Earth staircase. Yu Luo and the others were still slowly stimulating the growth of the tree of Heaven and Yellow. However, the speed of its growth was very slow. At the same time, Nie Tian's figure was still slowly climbing up the 9th level platform. His speed was neither fast nor slow, and he didn't seem to be in a hurry at all. He even gave off a feeling of leisure. He was not anxious, but Feng Shutong, who was outside the platform, was so anxious that he was sweating profusely. "Little brat Nie, just what are you doing? What time is it? Why are you still walking so slowly? Do you want to enjoy the scenery?" Uncle Feng kept wiping the cold sweat off his forehead as he screamed in his heart. Of course, he could tell that with Nie Tian's strength, if he went all out, he would have been able to pass the black and yellow trials long ago. However, Nie Tian was swaying slowly, almost like a snail. Actually, Nie Tian didn't want to do this, but he had to give Fat Cat and the Ghost Emperor enough time to deconstruct the Heaven's Chosen Dao platform. The 9th level's Dao structure was the most complicated, so Nie Tian had to walk very slowly. At this time, Fat Cat gave Nie Tian another task, which was to expand the 9 extremities. The strength of the Heaven's Chosen Dao platform exceeded Fat Cat and the Ghost Emperor's expectations. With the current size of the 9 extremities, it was extremely likely that it wouldn't be able to withstand such a huge amount of power, and there was the danger of it exploding. To be safe, Fat Cat asked Nie Tian to expand the 9 extremities temporarily. So, as Nie Tian climbed the platform, he secretly expanded the 9 extremities. Because of the restrictions on the platform, the speed at which he expanded the 9 extremities was very slow. Next, another 3 days passed, and Nie Tian finally arrived at the black and yellow trials. At this time, there were only 7 days left until the closing of the Heaven's Chosen Dao platform. "Fat, Ghost Emperor, have you finished deconstructing the Heaven's Chosen Dao platform?" Nie Tian stared at the black and yellow trials, his eyes burning with passion, and asked anxiously. "Yes." After a long time, Fat Cat's reply was finally heard. She was extremely excited. "Good." Nie Tian smiled and nodded. Without any hesitation, he stomped hard on the ground and leaped into the air, stepping onto the black and yellow trials. This scene caused everyone's eyes to flicker as they fixed their eyes on Nietian. Look, it's that weird silver-haired kid. He has also stepped onto the black and yellow trials. What do you mean by actually? Are you an idiot? Can't you tell that this kid is purposely conserving his strength so that he can step onto the black and yellow trials slowly? If he wanted to, he would have stepped onto the black and yellow trials long ago. Conserving his strength? I don't think so. Doesn't he want to absorb the black and yellow chi? Doesn't he want to get more points? The crowd discussed among themselves. It was obvious that they couldn't understand Nietian's previous actions. The Heaven's Chosen Saint stared at Nietian with a complicated expression. She shook her head and mumbled, "This kid is extremely talented, but he doesn't know how to cherish it. Now, even if he steps onto the black and yellow trials, it will be useless. There are only 7 days left. I don't think he will even be able to condense the black and yellow seeds." As she finished, the Heaven's Chosen Saint shook her head again, feeling that it was a pity. Sigh. On the other side, Feng Shutong was also furious. He cursed in his heart, "You little brat, even if you want to be in the limelight, you shouldn't do it like this. If you had given it your all from the beginning, I'm afraid your position would be even higher than Cher's. Now there are only 7 days left. Just focus on absorbing the black and yellow chi. I hope you will have a breakthrough in your strength." Feng Shutong's face tightened. He was gritting his teeth in hatred. He really couldn't understand why Nietian had to come up with so many tricks. He's really asking for it. What a sin. He even felt like strangling Nietian to death. At this moment, Ing Qianyu, Huanchu, Eli, and the others all had complicated expressions. They didn't know how to evaluate Nietian. As for the Thousand Illusions Granny, she was completely frozen on the spot. She couldn't say a single word. Only now did she realize that she had misjudged Nietian. And it wasn't just a small mistake. It was a huge mistake. At this moment, above the black and yellow trials, the others had started to activate the black and yellow seeds, allowing the tree of black and yellow to grow. Finally, I can condense the black and yellow seed. Nietian let out a long breath. He smiled and prepared to condense the black and yellow seed. Nietian, you don't need to condense the black and yellow seeds. Concentrate all your strength and continue to expand the 9 extremities. But at this moment, the fat cat's voice rang out again. Nietian was stunned. What about the black and yellow seeds? Without the black and yellow seeds, Nietian wouldn't be able to climb the black and yellow stairs. Leave the black and yellow seeds to that little grass. The fat cat laughed and said proudly. Lulu. Nietian was stunned. He immediately realized that the fat cat wanted Lulu to condense the black and yellow seed. Leave it to me. Liolio's voice rang out. He laughed and said, the black and yellow seeds that I condense will definitely be the purest. It will surprise everyone. That's good. Only after taking a deep breath did Nietian feel relieved. Then, he sat cross-legged and began to expand the 9 extremities seriously. It seemed that the Heaven's Chosen platform was very powerful. Otherwise, the fat cat wouldn't have allowed Nietian to continue expanding the 9 extremities. Soon, 6 days had passed. Nietian was still sitting in the same place without any movement. I still can't condense the black and yellow seed. Outside the platform, the Heaven's Chosen Saint Ambassador looked at Nietian and sighed. There were only a few hours left before the platform closed. Even if Nietian condensed the black and yellow seeds, it would be useless. But at this moment, the Heaven's Chosen Saint Ambassador's eyes widened. He saw Nietian stand up. Chapter 30:27. 9-veined black-yellow, mysterious yellow seed. The Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy stared at the yellow seed on Nietian's palm and screamed out in shock. His entire body stiffened and turned into stone. He simply couldn't believe his eyes. The profound yellow seed that Nietian had condensed was really too terrifying. Generally speaking, the black-yellow seeds condensed by the martial artists who ascended the 3 stages of the black-yellow stage were basically the size of an infant's fist. For example, the Rakshasa Saintus Ulua's mysterious yellow seed was very small, but very normal. The majority of the others who had condensed the mysterious yellow seeds were about the same as Ulua's, and many of them were even inferior to Ulua's. The profound yellow seed that Cher had condensed was far larger than Ulua's, purer in quality and stronger in aura. However, the heaven and earth seed Nietian had condensed was larger than Shui-Er's, and the heaven and earth aura within it was purer. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, the heaven's chosen saint envoy would never have believed that there was someone in the 10,000 territories who could condense such a pure mysterious yellow seed. In fact, regarding the quality of the profound yellow seed, other than the size and purity, there was another criterion to judge, and that was the profound yellow Tao pattern. The heaven and earth Tao pattern referred to a martial artist's comprehension and perception of the heaven and earth chi. Normally, the higher the comprehension and perception, the more heaven and earth Tao patterns. However, the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy knew that it was impossible for warriors below the sage realm to truly comprehend the heaven and earth chi. Therefore, the condensed heaven and earth seed would not have any heaven and earth Tao patterns. Only sage realm martial artists could truly comprehend the heaven and earth chi and condense the heaven and earth Tao pattern. At this moment, what the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy couldn't believe was that Nietian's heaven and earth seed had a heaven and earth Tao pattern. Impossible! Impossible! This is absolutely impossible! After being in a daze for a few seconds, the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy finally reacted. However, he seemed to be in a frenzy as he shook his head repeatedly. His eyes were filled with shock and even fear. Never in his wildest dreams would he have imagined that Nietian's mystic yellow seed would actually have a mystic yellow Tao pattern. Moreover, it wasn't just one dark yellow Tao pattern, but 9 dark yellow Tao patterns. 9 mystic yellow Tao patterns. This represented a martial artist's highest comprehension of mystic yellow energy. The Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy couldn't believe that the profound yellow seed in Nietian's hand was actually the legendary 9 patterns profound yellow seed. The crowd noticed the Saint Envoy's strange reaction and became confused. What's wrong with the Holy Messenger? Could it be that there's a problem with the mysterious yellow seed condensed by that silver-haired martial artist? That's not right. Even if there's something wrong with that guy's mysterious yellow seed, the divine envoy shouldn't have lost his composure like that. That kid's mysterious yellow seed is indeed much larger than the others. Moreover, the luster seems to be even more uniform. The seed. The crowd mystic yellow veth the crowd was v. The crowd. Yellow Tian v. Saint v. My. How could they know what 9 vain mysterious yellow signified? Even the peak monstrous geniuses of the sacred world could not condense 9 runes of heaven and earth. Only Saint Realm martial artists could produce mystic yellow seeds with Tao patterns. In the entire Heaven's Choice Holy Realm, the number of people who could produce mystic yellow seeds was less than 10. This was why the Heaven's Chosen Saint Envoy was so shocked. If this mystic yellow seed was really produced by Nietian, then his understanding of mystic yellow chi must have surpassed that of a Saint Realm martial artist. And yet, Nietian was merely a second-stage demi-saint at the moment. For a second-level demi-saint to be able to conjure the 9-patterned golden yellow was simply unbelievable. If the Saint Envoy told anyone else in the Holy Realm about this, he would be treated like a fool. At this time, Feng Shu Tong looked at Nietian, swallowed a mouthful of saliva, and said in his heart, "The mysterious yellow seed that kid Nietian has condensed seems to be better than the others. Next, there's only half a day left. Maybe he'll be able to advance another level and climb the mysterious yellow earth stairway." The people of the Juying Temple and the Rakshasa Temple were also staring at Nietian. This was especially true for Ing Qianyu and Huan Chu Li. They could faintly sense that something was amiss. Nie Tian's previous strange actions on the Tao platform, coupled with the yellow profound seed that he had condensed now, everything seemed to be very unusual. After a short while, the divine envoy of Heaven's choice finally calmed down. Looking at Nie Tian with a burning gaze, she thought to herself, perhaps this kid was circling around the Tao platform to sense the heaven and earth qi around it, from shallow to deep. At this time, he could only explain why Nie Tian was able to produce a mystic yellow seed. At the same time, on the Heaven's Choice platform, above the mystic yellow test. This mystic yellow seed has such a powerful aura. Nie Tian looked at the mystic yellow seed in his hand and was shocked. Took him a long time to react. Of course, the mystic yellow seed I produced is powerful. Lulu laughed proudly and said, even the old monsters of the sacred world can't compare to me. Lulu had the blood seal of the Saint Spirit. His greatest ability was to absorb all kinds of power. However, his most terrifying ability was to absorb saint power. The mystic yellow qi was a type of saint power. Therefore, it was too easy for him to produce the mystic yellow seed. Nie Tian, the 9 extremities are big enough to withstand the power of the Heaven's Choice platform. However, what you have to do next is not easy at all. Fat Cat's voice sounded. What do you mean? Nie Tian was stunned for a moment. He had thought that things were almost done, but from what little Fat Cat had said, it seemed like he still had more difficult things to do. The Heaven's Choice platform's power gathers at the top of the mystic yellow stairs. Fat Cat laughed and said, look at the top of the mystic yellow stairs. That is where the Heaven's Choice Tao pattern is the strongest. You have to go there and place the 9 extremities at the core of the platform. Only then can the 9 extremities absorb the power of the Heaven's Choice platform. This. Nie Tian frowned and his face darkened. Now there were only a few hours left before the Heaven's Choice platform closed. Fat Cat wanted him to reach the top of the mystic yellow stairs in a few hours. How could that be possible? Even Cher, who had the Heaven's Sacred Heart, had only reached the top of the mystic yellow stairs. However, she had used more than 10 days. Nie Tian wanted to reach the top of the Heaven's Choice platform in a few hours. That was just a pipe dream. At that moment, the Ghost Emperor's solemn voice rang out. Nie Tian, the mystic yellow seed you have is a mystic yellow seed with 9 lines. If you can't make it to the top of the Heaven's Choice platform, then you're really useless. Yes, I will do my best. Nie Tian nodded and his eyes became determined. Although he did not know what the 9 lines mystic yellow seed meant, it must be extraordinary to shock Ghost Emperor. Whether or not he could reach the top of the Heaven's Choice platform depended on the 9 lines mystic yellow seed. Chapter 30-28. Extreme Shock. Clap clap clap. Just as Nie Tian injected the power of the divine demon into the yellow seed was stimulated and instantly split open. Boom! Immediately, a powerful force of life was released, directly breaking through the 9 yellow Tao patterns, and a sprout of the yellow tree of heaven and earth appeared. Nie Tian, go all out, don't stop. At this time, Fat Cat said excitedly. Nie Tian, with your power of the divine demon, coupled with the 9 patterned yellow seed that I have condensed, the growth rate of this yellow tree of heaven and earth is absolutely beyond imagination. Lulu was extremely excited and said nervously. The power of the divine demon may not be comparable to the power of the stars. The Ghost Emperor's voice was heard, revealing a sense of excitement. 1 cat, 1 grass, and 1 spirit, the 3 strange companions who were closely connected to Nie Tian, were all very curious about how the yellow tree of heaven and earth would grow. Okay. Nie Tian agreed, and immediately released an even more terrifying power of the divine demon from his body, crazily injecting it into the yellow seed of heaven and earth. The seedling of the yellow tree of heaven and earth was stimulated, and instantly erupted with a vast amount of life force, growing at an incredible speed. 0.5 meter, 1 meter, 2 meters. 5 meters. In just the blink of an eye, the yellow tree of heaven and earth grew crazily, like a giant dragon breaking out of the abyss, extending towards the sky. Nye Tian stood on the yellow tree of heaven and earth, his eyes blazing, and his entire person was in a state of extreme excitement. He completely did not expect the growth rate of the yellow tree of heaven and earth to be so fast. Outside the platform, the crowd was completely shocked by the scene on the platform. Their expressions froze, and they were completely speechless. It was simply unimaginable that Nye Tian's yellow tree of heaven and earth could grow so fast. Compared to him, the yellow tree of heaven and earth of the others was simply like a snail. Under countless horrified gazes, the yellow tree of heaven and earth under Nye Tian's feet, in a few minutes, grew to a height of more than 10 meters. His figure quickly surpassed the 7 or 8 heavens chosen ones. Those heavens chosen ones stared at Nye Tian, completely stunned. Their expressions were stiff, and no words could express the shock in their hearts. They were well aware of how difficult it was to grow the mysterious yellow tree, but for Nye Tian it seemed very simple. "Oh my God, this!" At this moment, the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy let out a strange cry. Her eyes were trembling, and her eyeballs were about to pop out of their sockets. He couldn't imagine the scene in front of him at all. It felt like a dream. How was this possible? However, in the next moment, an even more shocking scene occurred. "Nye Tian, you must hurry up." Nye Tian stood on the tree of heaven and yellow, and the fat cat's voice resounded in his divine sense. "All right." Nye Tian complied, releasing an even more berserk power from his whole body, pouring it all into the mysterious yellow seed. This time, not only did he use the power of the demons and gods, but he also used the power of the 9 dragon veins, and even the power of the stars. The star origin stone had already merged with Nye Tian, and was no different from his bloodline power. Immediately, the yellow tree of heaven and yellow received an even stronger bloodline power, and its growth rate doubled in an instant. And at this moment, the space around the platform was affected by the rapid growth of the yellow tree of heaven and yellow, and it began to tremble slightly. Nye Tian immediately sensed that the enormous amount of heaven and earth chi that had been released from the Tao pillar was instantly absorbed by the tree of heaven and earth. The growth rate of the yellow tree of heaven and yellow mainly depended on 2 factors. One was the quality of the yellow seed, and the other was the power of the bloodline. Nye Tian's yellow seed was the 9-lined yellow seed, and it was the best yellow seed. His bloodline power mainly consisted of the power of the demons and gods, and the power of the stars. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was the strongest bloodline power. Therefore, his yellow tree of heaven and yellow was growing at a shocking rate. This kid's martial arts talent and bloodline power are simply unparalleled. The Heaven's Choice Envoy, who was outside the platform, shouted with a fiery and trembling gaze. Initially, he had thought that Shui Er's talent was the strongest amongst the Heaven's Chosen final paths. But now, he felt that the most talented Heaven's Chosen one should be Nye Tian. He believed that if Nye Tian was given enough time, he would definitely be able to climb the yellow heaven stairway. Even now, he still did not understand why Nye Tian had wasted so much time. Although Nye Tian's yellow tree of heaven and yellow was growing very quickly, it had consumed a lot of his bloodline power. This growth rate could not be maintained for long. The Heaven's Choice Envoy estimated that Nye Tian would only be able to climb the yellow heaven stairway. It would be impossible for him to climb the heaven stairway. However, what happened next made him petrified once again. On the platform, the yellow tree of heaven and yellow under Nye Tian's feet was growing very quickly and showed no signs of slowing down. When Nye Tian's figure surpassed Yulua's, the latter's pretty face and beautiful eyes were completely blank. It was obvious that she was extremely shocked. Soon, his yellow tree of heaven and yellow reached the same height as the yellow heaven stairway. At this moment, the crowd's eyes widened. They thought that Nye Tian was going to climb the yellow heaven stairway. However, the scene that they were anticipating did not happen. The yellow tree of heaven and yellow under Nietion's feet was still growing rapidly towards the yellow heaven stairway. Everyone's expression changed abruptly as they sucked in a breath of cold air. What was Nietion trying to do? Was he going to use a yellow tree of heaven to climb the yellow heaven stairway? This was too crazy. For other martialists, when the yellow tree of heaven grew to a certain extent, its growth potential would be exhausted and it would be impossible for it to continue growing. Therefore, it was necessary to condense a second yellow seed. After Cher climbed the yellow heaven stairway, she condensed a second yellow seed before starting to climb the yellow heaven stairway. However, Nietion was going to use a yellow seed to climb to the top. This was too terrifying. When the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy saw this, his eyes widened and he exclaimed, "This kid isn't just scary, he's scary." He had almost forgotten that the growth potential of the 9-lined yellow tree was enough to surpass the 3 stages of the yellow heaven stairway. Therefore, Nietion did not need a second yellow seed. He only needed a yellow tree of heaven and yellow to reach the top of the 3 stages of the yellow heaven stairway. The only question now was Nietion's bloodline strong enough? Following this, everyone's attention was focused on Nietion. Even the heaven's chosen ones below the 3rd stage of the platform were looking at Nietion, as if they had forgotten that they would be annihilated when the platform closed. Under the watchful eyes of countless people, Nietion's figure rose rapidly. The bloodline power around his body continued to be unleashed, trying his best to maintain the growth rate of the yellow tree of heaven. About half an hour later, his figure surpassed the yellow heaven stairway and reached the bottom of the yellow heaven stairway. Yellow heaven stairway! Yellow heaven stairway! He's climbing the yellow heaven stairway! The Heaven's Choice Envoy lost his composure and screamed crazily. It was hard to imagine that Nietion would use such a shocking method to climb the yellow heaven stairway. Nietion had broken the record of the Heaven's Choice platform. The crowd was completely stunned as they stared at Nietion blankly. However, in the next moment, everyone's eyes trembled violently. Chapter 30:29. Yellow Whale, what is he doing? Everyone's eyes widened and many of them exclaimed. They did not know how to express their feelings. Everyone thought that after Nietion reached the top of the heaven and earth stairs, he would ascend. However, who would have thought that Nietion would continue to ascend and reach the top of the heaven and earth stairs? Anyone who ascended the heaven and earth stairs, regardless of whether they were at the bottom or the top, would receive 20 points. Furthermore, Nietion had already broken the record. What was the point of him continuing to ascend the heaven and earth stairs? Is this kid trying to ascend to the top of the heaven and earth stairs? The Heaven's Choice Envoy stared at Nietion in disbelief. At this moment, he had once again changed his opinion of the weirdo he had previously thought of. In the next moment, he suddenly thought of something, and his expression couldn't help but change. The top of the heaven and earth stairs is where the eye of the Tao of the Heaven's Choice Tao platform is. Is this kid trying to do something? The Heaven's Choice Envoy suddenly thought of Nietion's previous strange behavior. His face shuddered and his heart skipped a beat. Vaguely, he had an ominous premonition. At this moment, Feng Shu Tong and the others were completely and utterly shocked. No words could describe the shock in their hearts. Nietion was too scary. Next, Nietion's figure continued to ascend. However, when he was halfway up the heaven and earth stairs, the growth of the tree of heaven and earth under his feet slowed down significantly. At this moment, he had consumed too much of his blood meridian power. The power of 1,000 streams of demons, the power of the 9 supreme dragon veins, and the power of 900 billion stars that had unsealed the second star scar seal made Nietion feel like he was about to collapse. The tree of heaven and earth had consumed too much of his blood meridian power. When the crowd saw that Nietion's tree of heaven and earth had slowed down, their eyes flickered and they heaved a sigh of relief. He's finally slowed down. It seems like it's impossible for this kid to ascend to the top of the heaven and earth stairs. I have to say, this kid's talent is really terrifying. If he didn't waste time earlier, I'm afraid he would really have a chance to reach the top of the 3 black and yellow trials. But even so, he's definitely the most talented. He's even stronger than the Rakshasa maiden and the people from Juying Shrine. As the crowd discussed, their expressions finally eased a little. Although they wanted to see the scene of Nye Tian ascending to the top, deep in their hearts, they rejected such an outcome. If Nye Tian was too powerful, wouldn't it reflect their incompetence? Phew. Fortunately, his tree of heaven and yellow has slowed down. At this moment, the Heaven's Choice Saint Ambassador let out a long sigh. Her tense nerves had relaxed quite a bit. At that moment, he really suspected what Nye Tian was going to do to the Heaven's Choice platform. But now that he thought about it, he felt that he had been worrying too much. In the end, Nye Tian was just a second-stage demi-saint. Even if his innate talents were beyond the heavens, there was no way he could threaten the Heaven's chosen platform. However, just as the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy's expression softened slightly, in the next moment a strange scene occurred. Boom! On the tree of heaven and yellow, Nye Tian's body suddenly trembled. Suddenly, violent bloodline power appeared again and surged into the tree of heaven and yellow like a raging flood. Whoosh! In an instant, the tree of heaven and yellow suddenly exploded with a tremendous amount of life force, causing the surrounding space to tremble. Immediately, the tree of heaven and yellow, which had been slowing down, began to grow wildly. The sudden scene caused everyone's eyes to tremble, and they were all shocked. Nye Tian had clearly consumed most of his bloodline power. Why was he able to burst forth with such an enormous amount of bloodline power? Just how much bloodline power was left in Nye Tian's body? However, everyone could see that Nye Tian's face was as pale as a sheet of paper. Even his entire body seemed to have become much thinner. Nye Tian, are you all right? Little Fat Cat's voice sounded in his mind, asking in a deep voice. Nye Tian's bloodline power exploded once again. In fact, he had activated the power of the Holy Soul Seal and forcefully released the bloodline power. At this moment, the Holy Soul Seal in his body had already reached the 3rd stage. It put a lot of pressure on the martial body. If he forcefully used it, it would cause serious damage to the martial body. I'm fine. Nye Tian shook his head slightly and forced a smile. Since he had already come this far, he had to give it his all. The peak of heaven and yellow was right in front of him. How could he give it up? This kid actually made the tree of heaven and yellow grow wildly again. Just how strong is his bloodline power? The Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy's eyes trembled as he shook his head continuously. He did not know how to evaluate the silver-haired martial artist in front of him. Although Nye Tian was only a martial artist from a realm, the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy knew that Nye Tian's talent was even more terrifying than the top geniuses of the sacred world. Nye Tian had grown up in a realm and had reached such a level. If he had been born in the sacred world, how terrifying would he be? Boom, boom, boom. At this moment, the tree of heaven and yellow under Nye Tian's feet grew rapidly. In the blink of an eye, it was about to touch the top of the tree of heaven and yellow. Boom! Buzz! At this moment, the entire Heaven's Choice platform trembled strangely. Then, it let out a low rumbling sound. It sounded like the chime of a bell or the cry of a swan goose. It was low and mournful, and it resounded in the space. At this moment, everyone felt a ripple that caused their bodies to tremble. They could not help but take a few steps back. The wail of heaven and yellow. The Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy's eyes widened and his old face stiffened. This sound was obviously the wail of heaven and yellow. It was a sound that the Heaven's Choice platform would make when it sensed danger. Without a doubt, the Heaven's Choice platform had sensed danger from Nye Tian. This kid, is he really going to do something to the Heaven's Choice platform? The Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy's face darkened as he exclaimed. He increasingly felt that the ominous premonition from before was becoming more and more intense. Could Nye Tian really be a threat to the Heaven's Choice platform? At this moment, the tree of heaven under Nye Tian's feet had finally reached the top of the tree of heaven. His lips curled into a smile as he prepared to reach the top of the tree of heaven. Son of a bitch! It's impossible for you to reach the top of the tree of heaven. However, at this moment a furious voice could be heard. I will destroy your tree of heaven and yellow. Let's see how you are going to reach the top. Nye Tian's gaze froze as he looked down. A figure was approaching his tree of heaven and yellow. It was the Shadow Flame Ruinous Fighter. In an instant, Nye Tian was in danger. If the tree of heaven and yellow was destroyed, he would fall straight to the ground. With the terrifying forbidding aura of the 3 tests, he would definitely be smashed into meat paste. Ha ha ha! Go to hell! The Shadow Flame Ruinous Fighter roared out violently. He then forcefully activated his Yuan Meridians and slammed his palm forward. A ferocious shadow of a palm slammed toward Nye Tian's tree of heaven and yellow. The sudden scene caused everyone's eyes to tremble. Chapter 30. Killing intent everywhere. Shadow Fire Ruinous Star's sudden attack shocked the crowd. Shadow Fire Ruinous Star, are you crazy? Outside the Dao platform, Ing Qianyu roared in his heart. Before entering the Heaven's Choice Dao platform, he had warned Shadow Fire Ruinous Star not to act recklessly without his orders. He had not expected that Shadow Fire Ruinous Star would suddenly attack at this moment. Nye Tian. Feng Shutong was shocked by the scene before him. He immediately cried out nervously. This! The Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy's reaction was strange. He was stunned for a moment before he realized something. He cried out in his heart, the Heaven's Choice Dao platform is protecting itself. In an instant, he understood. Shadow Fire Ruinous Star had suddenly attacked because he had been influenced by the Heaven's Choice Dao platform. Shadow Fire Ruinous Star was extremely hostile towards Nye Tian, but he did not dare to disobey Ing Qianyu's orders, so he did not dare to attack. However, the Heaven's Choice Dao platform had felt threatened by Nye Tian, so it triggered Ing Qianyu's hostility and made him attack. Boom! The palm shadow was like a killer, instantly attacking the yellow tree of mystery beneath Nye Tian's feet. At this moment of life and death, something strange happened. Whoosh! A black ray of light suddenly appeared and tore the palm shadow apart. Everyone's eyes trembled. They were both shocked and disappointed. Actually, everyone present wanted to see the scene of Nye Tian falling to his death. From their point of view, a person like Nye Tian should not exist. Towards those who were more talented than them, everyone had a natural hatred towards them. Who is it? Shadow Fire Ruinous Star's palm was blocked, and he let out a strange cry. His beast-like eyes stared at a figure. With me here, you cannot kill him. Rui Qianyu's eyes were as black as the night. She said in a cold tone. Just now, it was she who had blocked Shadow Fire Ruinous Star's fatal attack. The yellow tree of mystery had a strong life force, but its defense was not strong. If Shadow Fire Ruinous Star's palm had landed, the yellow tree of mystery would have been destroyed. Rui Qianyu was currently at about the same height as Shadow Flame Army Breaker, so she was able to block that palm just in time. Courting death, Shadow Flame Ruinous Star let out a strange cry. He then controlled the mystic yellow tree beneath his feet and charged at Rui Qianyu. Below, the expressions of the other Heaven's Chosen Ones changed at the same time. They stared at Nye Tian's tree of heaven and yellow with murderous intent. Obviously, they were also affected by the Heaven's Chosen Dao platform. Feng Qi, there's something wrong with these people. Don't let them get close to Nye Tian's tree of heaven and yellow. Emo sensed the abnormality and shouted loudly. He then controlled his yellow tree of mystery to approach Nye Tian's yellow tree of mystery. Holy shit! What's going on? Are these people crazy? Feng Qi's eyes flickered and he let out a strange cry. Then, he leaned against Nie Tian's tree of heaven and yellow. He had no idea what was wrong with these people. Why were they trying to stop Nie Tian from reaching the top of the Yellow Mountain? Feng Qi, it seems like they're being affected by some force. We must protect Nie Tian's tree of heaven and yellow, Emo said in a deep voice. He could not help but feel nervous. The strength of these cultivators was close to the pseudo-sacred realm. Furthermore, the fact that they were able to pass the 3 trials of the Yellow Mountain indicated that they were extremely talented. With his and Feng Qi's strength, it would be extremely difficult to stop so many people. Bang! 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 At that instant, the cultivators approached them and attacked at the same time. A series of ferocious attacks were fired at them like tsunamis. Crap! Emo's expression darkened as he let out a scream. He then forcefully activated his cloud veins, causing a pair of icy wings to appear on his back. Instantly, an icy aura was emitted, freezing the attacks with brute force. Bang! Upon seeing this, Feng Qi and Feng Yunlai attacked with their spear. The shadows of the spear were like dragons, shattering the attacks into pieces. It was their first time working together, but they had great chemistry. Puff! However, Emo's figure shuddered violently as he spat out a mouthful of blood. He had forcefully activated his cloud veins, resulting in a serious injury. Emo, are you alright? Feng Qi glanced at Emo and asked nervously. I'm fine. Emo nodded his head and forcefully activated his cloud veins despite his injuries, causing a second pair of icy wings to appear on his back. You! Feng Qi was startled, not knowing what Emo was trying to do. Icy force, ice seal. The corner of Emo's mouth twitched as a strange light shone in his eyes. His 2 pairs of frosty demonic wings unleashed a terrifying frosty aura that froze the space within a radius of dozens of meters, forming a frosty shield around the tree of heaven and yellow. This! Feng Qi was startled, before he realized that Emo was trying to protect Nie Tian's yellow tree of mystery despite the pressure from the forbidding aura. Puff! The next moment, Emo's body shuddered again as he spat out another mouthful of blood. His face was as pale as paper. Feng Qi hurriedly moved to Emo's side and frowned. He didn't expect that Emo would do this to save Nie Tian. I owe him, I have to pay him back. Emo looked at Feng Qi and squeezed out a smile. Nie Tian had saved him so many times. This time, it was his turn to save Nie Tian. Boom! 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 At this moment, those martial artists attacked again, but they were blocked by the icy shield. However, with Emo's current state, he obviously couldn't resist for long. At this time, Yuluo's beautiful eyes trembled and her expression was a little strange, but she returned to normal in the next moment. What's going on? Yuluo frowned, looking puzzled. Just a moment ago, she felt a strange power appear and actually wanted to invade her divine sense. At that moment, she had murderous intent toward Nie Tian. However, she immediately remembered that she had to make Nie Tian hand over the Star Origin stone willingly, so the murderous intent disappeared instantly. Up above, Shui-Er's expression sank as she looked down. The scene in front of her was something she didn't expect at all. At this moment, apart from Cher, Rui Qianyu, Yuluo, Feng Qi, Emo, and the others, everyone else seemed to have gone mad and wanted to destroy Nie Tian's tree of heaven and yellow. It seemed like the Heaven's Choice platform could only affect the personality of the chosen ones, but it couldn't control them. This was because the others were hostile toward Nie Tian and even had murderous intent, so they were affected by the Heaven's Choice platform. The people outside the platform were completely stunned, not knowing what was happening. It was as if everyone had gone mad in an instant. On the platform, Rui Qianyu barely blocked the shadow flame destruction, but Emo and Feng Qi below were in grave danger. Boom! Crack, crack, crack! At this moment, the frost shield finally couldn't withstand the attacks and started to crack. Nie Tian saw everything from above, and beads of sweat appeared on his face. He had never expected the Heaven's Choice platform to resist in such a way. What was worse was that no matter how much he released his bloodline power, his tree of heaven and yellow could no longer grow. It was obvious that the Heaven's Choice platform was suppressing Nietian's tree of heaven and yellow. Nietian was still a few meters away from the top of the tree of heaven and yellow. However, this distance of a few meters was like a chasm between heaven and earth. At the same time, the cultivators below grew even more berserk. Emo and Fengqi couldn't hold on any longer. Chapter 30-31. Bang! On the platform, a muffled sound was heard as Emo's frost shield shattered into pieces. Boom! 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 Following this, more than a dozen martial artists attacked at the same time. Terrifying attacks were fired towards Nietian's tree of heaven and yellow. Puff! Seeing this, Emo wanted to use his frost demon wings again, but his body trembled and he spat out a mouthful of blood. He had forcefully circulated his Yuan meridians. Both his martial body and Yuan meridians were severely injured, and he could no longer use his frost demon wings. Damn it! Fengqi frowned and his eyes trembled. Two streams of pupil power surged out and formed two doomsday vortexes in the air, blocking the violent attacks. However, he had used the doomsday eye under the suppression of the restriction, which caused a great backlash to his other pupil. In the blink of an eye, blood flowed out from his eyes and down his cheek. Boom! Boom! Following this, another round of attacks was launched. The two doomsday vortexes could not withstand the attacks and exploded in the air. Fengqi's body swayed and he almost fell to the ground. Emo and Fengqi's strength was weaker than the others. It was not easy for them to resist until now. Ha ha! Go to hell! In the next moment, a fierce roar was heard. A martial artist screamed and slashed with his saber. The saber shadow was violent and murderous. Emo and Fengqi looked at each other and made their moves at the same time. At this moment, the two were going to use their flesh and blood to block the saber for Nietian. Boom! Just as the saber shadow was about to land, a sword ray appeared in the air. It was as red as fire and blocked the saber shadow. Following this, a beautiful figure landed. It was Cher. Phew! When Fengqi saw Cher coming, he immediately let out a sigh of relief and said, "The strongest heroine is here. We can breathe a sigh of relief." Cher glanced at Fengqi. She didn't know what the latter meant by the strongest female lead, but her beautiful eyes slightly sank as she lightly said, "All of you, step down. Leave these people to me." Fengqi nodded repeatedly and quickly retreated to the side with Emo. Cher stood there coldly, her aura calm. However, those dozen or so martial artists seemed to have sensed danger and actually did not dare to make a move. Bang! But at this moment, a muffled sound suddenly came from high above, and a figure retreated, almost falling down. "Qianya!" Nietian cried out when he saw this scene from high above. The difference in strength between Rui Qianyu and Shadowflame Army Breaker was too great. She could no longer hold on. Rui Qianyu steadied herself. There was a trace of blood at the corner of her mouth, but her eyes were still resolute. She definitely would not take half a step back. You think you can stop me with just this bit of strength?" Shadowflame Army Breaker sneered, his aura threatening. "She can't stop you, but what about me?" But the moment he finished speaking, a cold voice sounded, and then a figure approached. It was Yu Luo. "Rakshasa Holy Maiden, are you going to help Nietian?" Shadowflame Army Breaker was stunned for a moment, but then he smiled coldly and asked in a deep voice. "This Holy Maiden wants to be friends with Nietian, so of course I have to show some sincerity." Yu Luo smiled lightly, and the corner of her mouth curled up coldly. Seeing this, Nietian finally let out a sigh of relief. With Yu Luo's strength, it was definitely no problem for her to stop Shadowflame Army Breaker. Snow, on the other hand, could hold off the others. With this, Nietian was temporarily safe. But now he was faced with an extremely difficult situation. His tree of heaven and yellow was no longer growing. Even if Cher and the others could hold on, Nye Tian could not wait any longer. Heaven's Choice platform would close in an hour, and he did not have much time left. Outside the platform, everyone's dull eyes finally reacted, but they were still filled with doubt. They could not understand what was happening on Heaven's Choice platform. Why did so many people want to kill Nye Tian all of a sudden? Nye Tian, are you trying to get your hands on Heaven's Choice platform? Feng Shu Tong looked at Nye Tian, his eyes trembling. With his intelligence, he had already guessed some clues. He had never thought that Nye Tian would be crazy enough to covet Heaven's Choice platform. Heaven's Choice platform was a true saint-class platform, and it contained powerful Dao patterns and heavenly energy. A saint-class weapon like this had its own consciousness. Feng Shu Tong guessed that Heaven's Choice platform must have felt threatened by Nye Tian, which was why it wanted to kill Nye Tian. Nye Tian, you are too naive. Heaven's Choice platform is not something that you can covet. Even if you can obtain the power of Heaven's Choice platform, will the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy let you go? Feng Shu Tong shouted in his heart, hoping that Heaven's Choice platform would close quickly. From his point of view, if Nye Tian could not obtain Heaven's Choice platform, it would definitely be a good thing. With the talent that Nye Tian had displayed, even if the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy knew what Nye Tian wanted to do, he would still forgive him. On the other side, the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy looked at Nye Tian, his eyes trembling as he said, "Kid, you have really refreshed my understanding of the martial artists of the domain." He had never imagined that something like this would happen during the Dao platform test. Luckily, the Heaven's Choice platform had sensed Nye Tian's intentions and resisted in time. Otherwise, the consequences would have been unimaginable. This was the Heaven's Choice platform. If it was destroyed by a martial artist from the domain, he, the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy, would have to pay with his life. Luckily, the Heaven's Choice platform had managed to stop Nye Tian. The Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy hoped that this situation would continue. Once the Dao platform closed, everything would be simple. Before the Dao platform closed, no one could approach it, not even the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy. However, at this moment, the expression of the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy stiffened once again. The gazes of the others also trembled at the same time. On the Heaven's Choice platform, the yellow tree under Nye Tian's feet had started to grow again. How is this possible? The Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy was shocked by the scene in front of him. How could Nye Tian's yellow tree grow again after being suppressed by the Heaven's Choice platform? Could it be that the power of Nye Tian's yellow tree was so strong that even the Heaven's Choice platform could not suppress it? His eye. The next moment, the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy noticed something strange. Around Nye Tian's right eye, there was a bright red mark of blood. A strange eye born from the power of the blood meridians. Immediately, the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy reacted. His expression changed as he exclaimed once again. That's right, the power that Nye Tian was releasing was from the demon's eye's extreme demon-destroying seal. He had only used the extreme demon-destroying seal once before, when he was killing the buried Shura. Fat Cat had warned him not to use the extreme demon-destroying seal again. However, he had already reached this step. He had to take the risk. If there was any power in his body that could resist the Heaven's Choice platform, it would be the extreme demon-destroying seal. At this moment, Nye Tian was extremely careful with the extreme demon-destroying seal. If he triggered the backlash from the extreme demon-destroying seal, he would die for sure. This time, there was no longer a sacred world seed by his side. Slowly, under the watchful eyes of countless people, Nye Tian's figure rose higher and finally touched the top of the yellow tree. The next moment, his figure moved and with a leap, he landed firmly on the top of the yellow tree. Outside the platform, everyone's eyes were filled with shock. They had also realized that something terrible was about to happen. Chapter 30-32. Eye of Tao. Heaven's chosen saint emissary's eyes narrowed when he saw Nie Tian's figure on top of the mysterious yellow peak. His face was filled with despair. He was very sure that Nie Tian was going to harm the Heaven's Chosen Tao platform and had even provoked the Heaven's Chosen Tao platform's resistance. And now, Nie Tian had stepped on top of the mysterious yellow peak and was approaching the Eye of Tao platform. Didn't that mean that the Heaven's Chosen Tao platform was going to be destroyed by Nie Tian? If the Heaven's Chosen Tao platform was destroyed, even if he had 1,000 lives, he wouldn't be able to survive. Thinking of this, Heaven's chosen saint emissary suddenly felt a chill down his spine as large beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. At this moment, Nie Tian stepped on top of the mysterious yellow peak. With a thought, the mysterious yellow tree under his feet suddenly shook and rapidly shrank back into the mysterious yellow seed. Lord Heaven's chosen saint emissary. Nie Tian reached out and held the mysterious yellow seed in his hand as a cold smile appeared on his face. He suddenly raised his head and looked at Heaven's chosen saint emissary. Kid, what are you going to do? Nie Tian's voice was like a clap of thunder that exploded in the Heaven's chosen sacred emissary's ears. The Heaven's chosen sacred emissary trembled and almost fell down. Lord Emissary, you have already guessed what I am going to do. Nie Tian laughed and said loudly, since the Heaven's Chosen Tao platform allows the Heaven's Chosen Ones to absorb the mysterious yellow qi, then I might as well absorb it all at once. Absorb it all at once? Heaven's Chosen Saint Emissary's eyes narrowed as he was shocked to the extreme. He suddenly felt a boom in his head as his entire body shook violently and was on the verge of falling. What is this kid doing? Could it be that he wants to absorb the energy of the entire Heaven's Chosen Tao platform? The eyes of the Doom emissaries outside the Tao platform were trembling violently, and their voices were sharp. Nie Tian was only a second-order demi-saint. Even if he could absorb the energy of the Heaven's Chosen Tao platform, could his martial body withstand it? Nie Tian, stop playing. You have already set foot on the top of Xianhuang. Can't you just stop here? On the other side, Feng Shutong was crying and yelling in his heart. If Nie Tian was by his side, he would have knelt down. Even in his dreams, he would never have thought that Nie Tian would actually covet the Heaven's Choice Tao platform. The Heaven's Choice Tao platform was something chosen by Heaven. How could it be something that just anyone could touch? If the Heaven's Choice Tao platform was destroyed, not only would Nie Tian be in trouble, but Feng Shutong and the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy would also be in trouble. However, Nie Tian was already at the peak of mysterious yellow, and no one could stop him. On the platform, the Heaven's Chosen Ones looked at Nie Tian in a daze, not knowing what he was going to do. Nie Tian, do it. Fat Cat's voice sounded from the top of Xianhuang. Nie Tian nodded heavily as he stared at the black-yellow seed in his palm. With a thought, a huge amount of power was released from the black-yellow seed, which turned into numerous black-yellow Tao patterns in the air and crazily rotated. Black and yellow Tao runes extended into the sky. Then, a strange scene appeared. In the center of the black-yellow peak, some kind of power seemed to have been activated. The space suddenly shook, and the entire Heaven's Choice Tao platform shook violently. Then, the black-yellow Tao patterns extended like a tide, and a huge vortex slowly appeared in the air, surging with a huge amount of Tao power. Eye of Tao. The moment the whirlpool appeared, the little fat cat's eyes trembled with excitement as it cried out in surprise. The huge vortex was the Eye of Tao of the Heaven's Choice Tao platform, the core of the entire platform, where all the Tao patterns gathered. Outside the Tao platform, Heaven's Choice Saint Emissary saw the Eye of Tao appear and his eyes trembled. He was extremely shocked. Just now, although he was in despair, he still had a trace of luck in his heart, thinking that Nie Tian would not be able to find the Eye of Tao. However, the appearance of the Eye of Tao completely tore apart the last trace of luck in his heart. It's over. Heaven's choice Saint Emissary's body went limp, and he took a few steps back, almost falling down. At this time, Nye Tian looked at the Eye of Tao with burning eyes. Fat Cat and Ghost Emperor had already worked together to crack the Tao structure of the Heaven's Choice Tao platform. He only needed to follow their instructions and activate the black-yellow Tao patterns to make the Eye of Tao appear. What he had to do next was even simpler. Nye Tian, put the 9 extremes into the Eye of Tao. Fat Cat and Ghost Emperor were very excited and said at the same time. Nye Tian nodded and the 9 extremes appeared in his hand. With a thought, he used the black-yellow Tao patterns to send the 9 extremes into the Eye of Tao platform. Boom! The moment the 9 extremes entered the Eye of Tao suddenly trembled and a huge force was released. Following which, the entire Heaven's Choice Tao platform shook as if it was about to collapse. A small world that claims to be a space. How could this brat? Heaven's Choice Saint Emissary looked at the 9 extremes in the Eye of Tao and was in complete despair. The last trace of hope was completely destroyed. The Heaven's Choice Tao platform could not be saved. The group of Doom emissaries looked at Nye Tian with extreme shock. No words or actions could express their current feelings. This brat wants to turn the 9 extremes into a sacred world. When Feng Shudong saw this scene, he completely understood Nye Tian's thoughts. At this moment, he was so regretful that his intestines turned green. If he had not created the sacred world seed in the 9 extremes and laid the foundation for the 9 extremes sacred world, Nye Tian would not have been able to use the 9 extremes to absorb the power of the Heaven's Choice Tao platform. But now it was too late to say anything. On the Heaven's Choice Tao platform, all the Heaven's Choice ones were scared silly as they stared blankly at the scene on top of the Heaven's Choice Tao platform. No matter how stupid they were, they understood that Nye Tian wanted to absorb the power of the entire Heaven's Choice Tao platform. Next, the Heaven's Choice Tao platform was about to collapse. Boom! Right at this moment, the Eye of the Tao platform suddenly spun rapidly and turned into a huge abyss. It was like a black hole as it began to crazily absorb the power of the Heaven's Choice Tao platform. Whoosh whoosh whoosh! In an instant, the entire Heaven's Choice Tao platform, every level of the Tao platform, every staircase, crazily surged out Heaven's Choice Tao platform. In the Eye of Tao, the 9 extremes were completely opened as they frantically absorbed the Heaven's Choice Tao platform. Haha! The 9 extremes is big enough. The power of the Heaven's Choice Tao platform will be absorbed quickly. The Fat Cat shouted in joy and excitement. Nye Tian, you don't have to care about the 9 extremes. Hurry up and absorb the power of the Heaven's Choice Tao platform. At this moment, the Ghost Emperor opened his mouth and said, Your Heaven's Choice Tao platform has absorbed a large amount of Heaven's Choice Tao platform. It's enough to raise your strength by several levels. And Nye Tian nodded slightly. The Heaven's Choice Tao platform in his hand turned into a ray of light and slowly entered his body. He directly sat down cross-legged and began to fuse with the Heaven's Choice Tao platform. Chapter 30-33. Black-Yellow Overturned Look. Not only is that kid absorbing the power of the Heaven's Chosen Path platform, but he's also integrating with the Yellow Seed. When the crowd saw Nye Tian on top of the Yellow Peak, their eyes couldn't help but tremble in shock. Normally, after Heaven's Chosen Ones use the Heaven's Yellow Seed to absorb the Heaven's Yellow Chi, they would absorb the Heaven's Yellow Seed after the Heaven's Chosen platform closed. The Fantasy Seed was condensed by a Heaven's Chosen, so it already had the bloodline aura of a Heaven's Chosen, so the absorption was relatively fast. But no matter how fast it would still take several days or even several months. After all, the power in the mysterious Yellow Seed was too great. Like Nye Tian, who immediately fused with the mysterious Yellow Seed, was very rare. But in the next moment, everyone's expression froze once again. They were completely shocked. Boom! Nye Tian sat cross-legged on top of the Heaven and Earth Peak. Not long after, A towering aura surged out of his body like a giant sword that soared into the sky. At this moment, he stood up. His aura was incomparably sharp. Compared to before, his aura was much stronger. Level 5 Demi-Saint. The corner of his mouth curled up, and a sharp divine light shot out of his eyes as he smiled. Absorbing the power of the yellow seed had allowed him to ascend from a second-order Demi-Saint to a fifth-order Demi-Saint. Nye Tian was very satisfied that his strength had instantly increased by 3 ranks. How is this possible? When the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy saw this, his eyes trembled and he cried out in shock. He did not expect that Nye Tian could actually absorb and fuse with the profound yellow seed in such a short time. But this wasn't what shocked him the most. What he couldn't accept the most was that Nye Tian's strength had only increased by 3 ranks. Nye Tian's heaven and earth tree was 300 meters tall. The amount of heaven and earth chi it contained was simply unimaginable. Under normal circumstances, a level 2 demi-saint would be able to become a level 5 pseudo-saint after absorbing so much chi of heaven and earth, or even a level 9 pseudo-saint. After all, Nye Tian's tree of heaven and yellow had far surpassed the record. The Saint Envoy of Heaven's Choice had personally witnessed a level 1 pseudo-sage's strength rise to level 9 pseudo-sage after absorbing a 100-meter tree of heaven and yellow. Nye Tian's mystic yellow tree was more than 100 meters tall, and the one he had condensed before was the 9 runes mystic yellow tree. But why did his strength only increase by 3 levels? Even if Nye Tian's martial body was strong and extraordinary, it was impossible for his strength to only increase by 3 ranks. The end-of-the-road messengers were also aware of this, and their expressions were equally shocked. If Nye Tian completely absorbed the power of the mysterious yellow seed and only increased his strength by 3 stages, then his martial body would be even stronger than a stage 9 pseudo-saint. But he was only a second-order demi-saint before this. At that moment, Nye Tian stood at the top of the heaven and earth with a faint smile on his face. His martial body was very strong, but it was not strong enough to be comparable to a stage 9 pseudo-sage. After all, he was too weak. The reason why his strength had increased so little was that most of the power of the mysterious yellow seed was not absorbed by him, but stored in the sacred spirit blood seal. This was also why Nye Tian could absorb and integrate the mysterious yellow seed in a short time. To be precise, the mysterious yellow seed was condensed by Lulu, so it was easier for Lulu to absorb it. There was another important reason why Nye Tian did not directly absorb the mysterious yellow seed. He did not want to lose too much of the power of the mysterious yellow seed. After Lulu had absorbed and refined the mysterious yellow seed, it was easier to absorb. He only needed to wait for a few more months for Lulu to completely refine the power of the mysterious yellow seed, and then he would use the heavenly ice rheumatism to help him absorb the power of the mysterious yellow seed. By preliminary estimates, Nye Tian's strength would reach the pseudo-sage level after absorbing the mysterious yellow seed. If it was an ordinary martial artist of the same level, his strength would probably reach the peak of the pseudo-sage level. But Nye Tian's martial body was too strong, so he needed more power to improve his strength. Boom! At this time, the speed at which 9 extremities absorbed the mysterious yellow Tao patterns increased. On the Heaven's Choice Tao platform, endless mysterious yellow Tao patterns flowed out and into the Tao Technique Eye, then into 9 extremities. Pung! 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 As the mysterious yellow Tao patterns decreased, the Heaven's Choice Tao platform could not hold on any longer. The entire Tao platform shook violently and huge Tao stones cracked. The entire Tao platform was on the verge of collapse. When the crowd outside the Tao platform saw this, they all gasped. The fear in their hearts was written all over their faces. The Heaven's Choice Tao platform was really going to collapse. It's over, it's all over now. The Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy's face was ashen, and his eyes were filled with despair. On the Heaven's Choice Tao platform, the Heaven's Chosen Ones were even more panicked. Many of their eyes were glazed over, as though it was the end of the world. Rumble. After a while, the first level of the Tao platform could not hold on any longer, and it collapsed, falling off the Tao platform. There were not many Heaven's Chosen Ones on the first level of the Tao platform. There were only a few hundred of them. The instant the first level of the Tao platform collapsed, the restrictive enchantment disappeared. These Heaven's Chosen Ones immediately left the Tao platform and stood in the air. The collapse of the Tao platform not only did not kill them, but it saved them instead. Originally, the Heaven's Chosen Ones below the third level of the Tao platform were about to die from the Heaven's Choice Seal. However, the collapse of the Heaven's Choice Tao platform had caused the Heaven's Choice Seal within their bodies to disappear. Rumble. The huge Tao platform fell like a mountain, causing turbid waves to rise from the ground. Next, the second level of the Tao platform, the third level of the Tao platform, and the rest of the Tao platforms started to collapse. More and more Heaven's Chosen Ones left the Tao platform and stood in the air, looking at the scene before them in shock. Very quickly, the 9 levels of the Tao platform had all collapsed, leaving only the Heaven and Yellow Gate. The Heaven and Yellow Qi within the 9 extremes is getting thicker and thicker. Nie Tian had long left a soul imprint on the 9 extremes. When he felt the aura within the 9 extremes, he was overjoyed. After absorbing so many Heaven and Yellow Tao patterns, the 9 extremes would soon become a real sacred realm. Bang bang bang. Next, the Heaven and Yellow Gates started to collapse, and the human stairs started to fall. At this moment, other than Nie Tian, all the Heaven's Chosen Ones had left the Tao platform. Nie Tian, it's going to end soon. Get ready to take back the 9 extremes. Fat Cat's voice rang out, reminding Nie Tian. Nie Tian nodded his head, but he could not help but feel nervous. Outside the Tao platform, countless pairs of eyes were staring at the 9 extremes greedily. Everyone saw that the power of the entire Heaven's Choice Tao platform had been absorbed by the 9 extremes. How could they not have any thoughts about the 9 extremes? Next, it was hard to say if Nie Tian could protect the 9 extremes. After a while, the Heaven and Earth stairs and the Heaven and Earth stairs collapsed, leaving only the Tao Technique Eye. Everyone's eyes heated up, and many people could not help but get closer. Once the 9 extremes had completely absorbed the Tao Technique Eye, these people would snatch it away. At this moment there was no need to talk about morality. This is going to be troublesome. Nie Tian could feel the burning desire in everyone's eyes, and his heart sank. Buzz. At this moment the sky rumbled, and the 9 extremes had completely absorbed the Tao Technique Eye. At the same time, countless pairs of eyes suddenly trembled, and they were eager to try. All of you back off. However, at this moment, a deep roar could be heard, and a figure stepped out, like a mountain, and arrived in front of Nie Tian. Chapter 30-34. Furious Messenger, Lord Messenger. When everyone saw the arrival of the Heaven's Choice Messenger, they couldn't help but exclaim and step back uncontrollably. With the arrival of the Heaven's Choice Messenger, no one dared to get close. At this moment, as a thought entered Nie Tian's mind, the 9 extremities flew into his hand and vanished. The divine envoy of heavens will stared at Nie Tian with a cold, murderous look in her eyes as she shouted, "Kid, hand that thing over." The Heaven's Choice platform had been destroyed. His only chance of survival now was to get the 9 extremities from Nie Tian. As long as he could get the 9 extremities, he would be able to answer to the Heaven's Choice platform. Lord Messenger, what is the meaning of this? Nie Tian smiled and asked calmly. He had worked so hard to get the 9 extremities to absorb the energy of the Heaven's Choice platform. How could he hand it over so easily? Kid, don't play dumb in front of me. That thing has absorbed the energy of the entire Heaven's Choice platform. Do you think I will let you keep it? The Heaven's Choice messenger shouted angrily and stepped forward. His entire body emitted an immense amount of energy that pressed down on Nie Tian like a tsunami. Boom! In an instant, Nie Tian felt the space around him turn heavy. A terrifying force appeared and enveloped his entire body, making it hard for him to breathe. The pressure of a sage. When everyone saw this, their faces changed and they exclaimed, "Who would have thought that the Heaven's Choice Messenger would ignore his status and directly exert pressure on Nie Tian to force Nie Tian to surrender? What a powerful pressure!" Nie Tian's face changed and his heart sank. The pressure from a sage was too terrifying. It made him feel like he was suffocating. "Lord Messenger, when we entered the Heaven's Choice platform, you didn't say that we couldn't absorb the energy of the Heaven's Choice platform," Nie Tian said in a low voice. "Hand over the thing." The Heaven's Choice Messenger ignored Nie Tian and roared again. All of a sudden, the chi around his body exploded and an even stronger pressure was released. Boom! Immediately after, Nie Tian's body sank and blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. His face turned red and blood flowed from his mouth. It was as if he was about to be crushed to death. Nie Tian. At this time, Feng Shutong took a step forward and shouted, "Hand Yu Ji over to Lord Divine Envoy." The corners of Nie Tian's mouth twitched, and he smiled coldly. His eyes were filled with coldness as he said in a deep voice, "Impossible! The 9 extremities belong to him. How could he hand it over to someone else? Not even the Heaven's chosen Saint Envoy." At this time, Nie Tian had already prepared for the worst. If the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy continued to pressure him, he would have to take the risk and use the Extreme Demon Exterminating Seal. He was confident that he could kill the Heaven's Chosen Envoy in an instant. The terror of the Extreme Devil Exterminating Seal, Nie Tian was well aware. If he used the Extreme Devil Exterminating Seal now, it would be a life-and-death struggle. "Nie Tian, you must not use the Extreme Devil Exterminating Seal." At this time, Fat Cat had already guessed what Nie Tian was thinking and shouted anxiously. The Extreme Devil Exterminating Seal had already backfired once. If it backfired again, it would be even more terrifying. Nie Tian would be killed instantly. "Nie Tian, even if you use the 9 Extremities Chaos Beast, you must not use the Extreme Devil Exterminating Seal." At the same time, the Ghost Thearka's voice rang out. He was already prepared to release the 9 Extremities Chaos Beast at any time. Given Nie Tian's current strength, the power of the 9 Extremities Chaos Beast was enough to fight against a sage. Even if the aura of the 9 Extremities Chaos Beast was released, it could attract terrifying enemies. That was better than Nie Tian being directly attacked by the Extreme Devil Exterminating Seal. Nie Tian replied in a low voice. He forcefully activated his 9 Essence Meridians and Star Essence Stones to resist the suppression of the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy. At this moment, his face was as hideous as a wild beast's. His facial features were contorted, and he looked extremely terrifying. "Brat, you are courting death," the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy shouted in a low voice. In his cold eyes, a sharp killing intent surged. If Nie Tian did not hand over the 9 extremities, he would really kill him. "Lord Saint Envoy." At this moment, a figure appeared and bowed towards the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy. This figure was the Juying Palace Master, Ing Qianyu. "Speak." The Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy looked at Ing Qianyu and said coldly, "Lord Saint Envoy, the Heaven's Choice Tao platform has already been destroyed by this person. Even if you kill him, it will not help. If you force him too much, he will destroy the 9 extremities. That will be troublesome," Ing Qianyu said in a low voice and said coldly. When the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy heard Ing Qianyu's words, his face darkened. His aura weakened slightly. "Lord Saint Envoy, the 9 extremities are mine. I will not hand it over. Furthermore, the 9 extremities have my soul seal. With a single thought, the 9 extremities will be destroyed. I believe that Lord Saint Envoy does not wish to see that happen." Nie Tian said in a low voice as he felt the pressure on his body weaken slightly. Brat, you dare to threaten me after destroying the Heaven's Choice Tao platform. The Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy roared furiously. His eyes were filled with a strong killing intent. However, he still controlled himself and did not kill Nie Tianxia. On one hand, Nie Tian was too talented. He was indeed a rare martial arts genius. On the other hand, the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy was worried that Nie Tian would destroy the 9 extremities. I am not threatening you, Lord Saint Envoy. I am just reminding you out of goodwill. Nie Tian took a deep breath and forced a smile on his face. As long as the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy calmed down, there would be a chance for him. Lord Saint Envoy, it has already happened. Why don't we discuss this? There is no need for us to fight to the death. At this moment, another figure appeared and said in a low voice. It was Huangchu Evil. Both Ying Qianyu and Huangchu Evil did not wish for Nie Tian to die. After all, they had not obtained the star origin stones from Nie Tian. The Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy's face was tense. However, the aura around him weakened gradually. Brat, what do you want in order to hand over the 9 extremities? Forcing himself to calm down, the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy asked coldly. Lord Saint Envoy, I have said that the 9 extremities are mine. I will not hand it over. Nie Tian let out a long breath and calmed down. He said, Lord Saint Envoy said that if anyone can climb the Heaven's Path, the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy will give them an additional reward. How about this? I do not want the additional reward. The Heaven's Choice Tao platform will be my reward. How about that? Bulsh *T. Just as Nie Tian finished speaking, the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy roared and cursed. Nie Tian's plan was quite good. He wanted to use the additional reward to exchange for the Heaven's Choice Tao platform. No matter how good the additional reward was, it could not be compared to the Heaven's Choice Tao platform. Most importantly, the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy had to bear a lot of responsibility for the destruction of the Heaven's Choice Tao platform. The Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy, a true sage, had to watch as the Heaven's Choice Tao platform was destroyed by a Heaven's Choice. This in itself was a huge humiliation. If the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy could not get Nie Tian to hand over the 9 extremities, he would definitely die. Chapter 30-35. The ultimate moment. As soon as the Heaven's Choice Envoy finished speaking, the entire place fell into a dead silence. No one had expected that the Heaven's Choice Envoy would offer so many benefits to Nie Tian in order to obtain 9 extremities. Especially the title of Heaven's Choice Star Chief. This was a fatal temptation to all the Heaven's Choice participants. The so-called Heaven's Choice Star Chief was the first in the Heaven's Choice path. The top 12 in the Heaven's Choice path were known as the Heaven's Choice Stars, while the first was known as the Heaven's Choice Star Chief. Which Heaven's Choice participant did not want to obtain the title of Heaven's Choice Star Chief? Most importantly, the Heaven's Choice Star Chief could follow the Heaven's Choice Envoy into the sacred world. The holy world was the dream of all the martial practitioners in the realms. Nie Tian had just completed the first test of the Heaven's Choice path, and he had already become the Heaven's Choice Star Chief. This was something that had never happened before in the history of the Heaven's Choice path. At this moment, any other Heaven's Choice participant would agree to the Heaven's Choice Envoy's suggestion without hesitation. However, Nie Tian remained expressionless and didn't say a word. The Heaven's Choice Envoy had made this promise in front of so many people. It was obviously not a joke. However, to Nie Tian, the Heaven's Choice Envoy's promise was not very tempting. He deserved the extra reward for climbing the Heaven's Choice path. He was not interested in asking the Heaven's Choice Envoy for other conditions. As for the title of Heaven's Choice Star Chief, he believed that with his current strength, it would not be difficult for him to obtain it. More importantly, 9 extremities was too important now. With the Sacred World Seed, 9 extremities would soon become a real sacred world after absorbing the power of the Heaven's Choice Path platform. Was Nye Tian a fool to use a sacred world in exchange for the title of Heaven's Choice Star Chief? Kid, you should know that I am not the only one who wants 9 extremities. Even if I do not ask you to hand over 9 extremities, will others not? With your strength, will you be able to protect 9 extremities? The Heaven's Choice envoy saw that Nye Tian was not speaking and thought that he was hesitating. Thank you for your reminder. At this moment Nye Tian spoke. He smiled and said, whether or not I can protect 9 extremities is my problem. There is no need for you to worry. Hearing Nye Tian's words, the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy's face darkened. He asked in a cold tone, are you still unwilling to hand over the 9 extremities? He didn't expect that Nye Tian wouldn't be moved in the slightest even after he lowered his status, lowered his posture, and tried to persuade Nye Tian so earnestly. He even made such a generous promise. Lord Divine Envoy, the 9 extremities mean something to me. I can't hand it over. Nye Tian smiled calmly. Brat, you're challenging this exalted one's bottom line. The Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy's expression darkened as he let out a roar. His aura rose once again and a terrifying pressure filled the air. Qianyu and Huangchu Eli were both taken aback, and couldn't help but retreat. They didn't expect Nye Tian to be so stubborn. In my opinion, the sacred envoy's patience is far from the bottom line. Nye Tian smiled faintly and was still indifferent. You're courting death. The Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy couldn't stand it anymore. He let out a roar as his aura burst out and crushed down on Nye Tian like a raging wave. Buzz. In the blink of an eye, the air was suppressed by a tremendous force, resulting in a deep roar. Bang! A tremendous force landed on Nye Tian's body like a mountain. Nye Tian's body sank as he spat out a mouthful of blood. He instantly felt like his body was about to be torn apart by the force. However, he managed to hold his ground and did not fall to the ground. The Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy frowned as his expression darkened. He didn't expect Nye Tian's martial physique to be this strong. Even a low-level pseudo-sacred expert wouldn't be able to withstand the pressure from the Saint Envoy. However, Nye Tian only had the strength of a 5th-level demi-sacred, yet he was able to withstand it. It was unbelievable. Lord Saint Envoy, do you really want to fight to the death? Nye Tian asked in a deep voice as he endured the immense pressure. Hand over the 9 extremities. The Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy's eyes were cold and murderous. He seemed to have gone mad as he roared. Then, the aura around him skyrocketed once again, and he crushed down on Nye Tian. At that moment, Nye Tian's body sank as wounds appeared on his body. This was the result of his martial physique being torn apart by the immense pressure. Nye Tian, why are you doing this? Feng Shutong was extremely sad when he saw this. From his point of view, there was no way he could protect the 9 extremities. Nye Tian's actions were equivalent to courting death. Nye Tian's body was covered in blood, but he suddenly lifted his head and roared like a wild beast. No! Brat, you've angered me. The Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy's face trembled as a cold light flashed in his eyes. He roared and the aura around him skyrocketed. He was completely enraged. Boom! Suddenly, a terrifying pressure was unleashed. It was like a raging wave that suppressed the void and pressed down on Nye Tian. This. Qianyu and Huangchu were the closest to the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy. They were shocked when they felt the immense pressure. Even they might not be able to withstand such a terrifying pressure, let alone Nye Tian, who was a 5th-order demi-saint. Once the pressure landed, Nye Tian would definitely die. Let him go. At the moment of life and death, a clear voice was heard. Then a figure appeared. Her entire body was surging with blood-red sword will and was as dazzling as the sunset. Schwer! Nye Tian's eyes flickered as he saw the figure's face clearly. He never expected that Cher would attack the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy in order to save him. 9 colored pupils, demon sealing 9 slashes. On the other side, another voice was heard. The void trembled for a moment as a terrifying power formed into a 9-colored blade in the air and attacked the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy. Nye Tian's expression flickered again as he exclaimed, "Qianye!" Rui Qianyu had also made her move. 9 colored pupils, demon sealing 9 slashes. God-slaying sword. At the same time, Cher's voice was heard again. A blood-red sword shadow pierced through the air and attacked the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy. The sudden scene caused everyone's eyes to tremble, and they exclaimed at the same time. Who would have thought that someone would dare to attack the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy? Humph! The Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy's eyes darkened. He sneered and waved his hand, saying coldly, "Die, ants!" Whoosh! Whoosh! The next moment 2 rays of white light appeared. Although they did not look imposing, they contained a terrifying amount of power. They headed for Cher and Rui Qianyu. Ghost Emperor! When Nye Tian saw this, his pupils dilated and he roared. The Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy was completely enraged and attacked with all his might. Plus, no matter how powerful Cher and Rui Qianyu were, they could not possibly block the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy's attack. Break! The Ghost Emperor roared and the seal on the 9 extreme chaos beast was broken. Roar! All of a sudden, Nye Tian's body shuddered as a deep, furious roar echoed out, and a boundless crimson aura burst out of him. Chapter 30-36. Heaven's Choice Buzz. Nye Tian stood upright and a terrifying red light was emitted from him. It was like a blood-colored ripple that spread out in all directions, causing the entire space to tremble. Bang! In an instant, the pressure from the Heaven's Choice Envoy was broken. This sudden scene caused the Heaven's Choice Envoy to be stunned. His eyes were filled with fear. At the same time, the rest of the people felt the terrifying pressure and quickly backed off. However, they were still affected by the red light. Many of them spat out blood on the spot and some of the weaker ones were severely injured. The crowd was dumbfounded. No one had expected that Nye Tian's body would release such a terrifying power. Roar! In the next moment, a furious roar resounded like a thunderclap, and then circles of blood-red light appeared behind Nye Tian, surging and spreading in the void. In the next moment, a 10,000-meter-long crimson behemoth appeared behind Nye Tian, its terrifying aura shaking heaven and earth. At this moment, even the heavens and earth seemed small. The red beast stood tall between the heavens and earth like it was the ruler of the world. The Emperor's chi was so strong that it looked down on the world. Everyone's expressions were petrified as they stared at the red beast. The shock in their hearts was indescribable. The 10,000-meter-tall red beast was like the ruler of the heavens and earth. Its fiery eyes shone like the sun, moon, and stars. The Heaven's Choice Envoy was stunned by the scene in front of him. He was stunned for a moment. He had never expected that there would be such a terrifying existence inside Nye Tian's body. At that moment, a crimson-red sword shadow and a 9-colored blade flew by, leaving 2 bloody wounds on the body of the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy. Cher and Rui Qianyu froze and looked at each other. They were equally shocked. They did not know that Nye Tian had such a terrifying trump card. It was already impressive that they could injure the Heaven's Choice Envoy with their full strength. At this moment, the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy's eyes were trembling. Ignoring the wounds on his body, he stared at the 9-top Chaos Beast. After a long time, he finally spoke. "Lad, why is there a 9-top Chaos Beast in your body? Are you surprised?" Nye Tian stood on top of the 9 extreme Chaos Beast, his eyes cold and murderous. Since he had released the 9 extreme Chaos Beast, he did not have to worry too much. He was even prepared to kill the Heaven's Choice Envoy. The 9 extreme Chaos Beast came from that place. "Why is it in your body?" the Heaven's Choice Envoy asked in a low voice. Only now did he realize that Nye Tian had a secret that even he was afraid of. The 9th-level Chaos Beast was such a terrifying existence. Why would it appear in the body of a domain realm martial artist? Nye Tian, you have to kill him! At this moment, Little Fat Cat's voice rang out. The secret of the ninth extreme chaos beast could not be spread to the sacred world. Since the Heaven's Choice envoy had seen the 9 extreme chaos beast, he had to be killed. Nye Tian nodded slightly, his eyes filled with murderous intent. Kid, do you think you can kill me? The Heaven's Choice envoy could feel Nye Tian's murderous intent. He said cold, even if you have the 9 extreme chaos beast, you are no match for me. You are too weak. The 9 extreme chaos beast will not be able to unleash its full power in your hands. At that moment, the Heaven's Choice envoy's eyes were filled with greed. He was facing a 9 extreme chaos beast. How could he not be tempted? It seems like you want to kill me more. Come on. Nye Tianling laughed, his fighting spirit burning. He really wanted to know how strong the 9 extreme chaos beast, which had been sealed for so long, was. Heh. The Heaven's Choice envoy laughed coldly and said, Brat, you will find out soon. The power of a sage is beyond your imagination. Is that so? Nye Tianling replied calmly. He had never seen a real sage in action, but he had seen people stronger than a sage. Eternally Merciless and Huairu in the furnace of Hell State were both stronger than this Heaven's Choice envoy. Kid, die. At that moment, the Heaven's Choice envoy laughed coldly and moved. His aura surged to the maximum as he struck out with his palm. Boom. Crack, crack, crack. The void suddenly sank as a sinister bone claw appeared. It was 10,000 meters long and tore the void apart wherever its 5 fingers passed. Roar. The 9 extreme chaos beast saw this and roared. Its huge body rushed forward, causing the void to tremble and the heavens to wail. The crimson beast charged through the void like a huge ball of crimson flame. Boom. Boom, boom, boom. The 9 extreme chaos beast collided with the huge bone claw. The void roared and the bone claw shattered. Horrifying wounds appeared on the body of the 9-fold chaos beast. Bright red blood gushed out of the wounds. But the 9 extreme chaos beast was fearless. Its huge body rushed forward like a surging volcano. Its terrifying aura shook the heavens and the earth. The Heaven's Choice envoy felt the pressure. He realized that the 9 extreme chaos beast was far more terrifying than he had imagined. He moved and a pair of almost transparent wings appeared on his back as he retreated frantically. Run. Do you think you can escape? Nye Tian's lips twitched as he laughed coldly. On the back of the 9 extreme chaos beast, a pair of fiery red wings spread out. They were 10,000 meters long and looked like the sunset. Roar! The next moment, the 9 extreme chaos beast roared angrily and flapped its wings. Instantly, a ball of red flames shot out and attacked the Heaven's Choice envoy. This sudden scene made the Heaven's Choice Saint envoy's eyes widen in astonishment. He had not expected the 9 extreme chaos beast to be able to unleash such a powerful attack. At this moment, he deeply felt what it meant to be hopeless. The real aura of death approached him in an instant. The heat in the air became stronger and stronger. The power of the ball of flames seemed to be able to burn everything. Everyone was shocked by the scene before them. Their expressions were blank. Nye Tian was really going to kill the Heaven's Choice envoy. No. The next moment, the ball of flames descended rapidly. The Heaven's Choice envoy could feel the entire space around him being engulfed by a sea of flames. He could not help but cry out in pain. If the ball of flames descended, the Heaven's Choice envoy would definitely die. At the moment of life and death, something strange happened. Boom! In the sky, a huge force appeared. It was a ball of light that descended instantly. Like a spring breeze, it enveloped the ball of flames and swallowed it whole. The Heaven's Choice envoy's eyes widened. He looked up into the sky and saw a lady in white. She looked very young. She looked like she was only about 20 years old. In reality, she was not that old either. Heaven's Choice Honorable. The next moment, the Heaven's Choice envoy realized what was going on. His expression changed and he screamed. This lady in white was actually the Heaven's Choice Honorable. You are. Nye Tion's body froze for a moment before he raised his head to look at the white-clothed woman in the sky. When he saw her face clearly, his entire body froze and he was dumbfounded. He simply couldn't believe his eyes. The face of the woman in white was actually a face that he couldn't be more familiar with. Chapter 30-37. Who was that? When Nye Tion saw the white-robed woman's face clearly, his pupils constricted. His expression was one of extreme shock, and he instantly froze. The scene in front of him was something he had never expected, something he could never have imagined. The face of the woman in white was exactly the same as Cher's. His facial features, eyebrows, eyes, and the corners of his mouth were exactly the same. There was no difference at all. How is this possible? Nye Tion felt his mind go blank. He shuddered as if he had been hit by something. Why did the woman in white look exactly like Cher? Or rather, why did she have Cher's face? Even if they were twins, it was impossible for them to look exactly the same. This woman in white was like a doppelganger of Cher. Or rather, Cher was her doppelganger. On the other side, when Snow and Rainy Thousand Leaf saw the woman in white, the shock in their hearts was perfectly written on their faces. Cher's eyes were trembling, and her expression was changing rapidly. It was as if she was going through something. Cher. Rui Qianyu calmed down quickly. She came to Cher's side, worried that something might have happened to her. Without a doubt, this woman in white must be related to Cher in some way. The others also realized that something was strange. Many of them looked between the woman in white and Cher in shock. Even the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy was stunned. He gasped and was speechless. Never in his wildest dreams did he expect that the Heaven's Chosen One, who had suddenly descended, would look exactly like a realm martial artist. At that moment, the Heaven's Choice Saint stood in the void. Her body was surrounded by a faint halo. She looked holy and pure. However, her eyes were fixed on Nye Tion coldly. Idiot! Take back your level 9 Chaos Beast. The Heaven's Choice Saint spoke coldly and calmly. Nye Tion narrowed his eyes. After thinking for a while, he ordered the level 9 Chaos Beast to return to the chaotic original coffin. This mysterious woman in white was obviously much stronger than the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy. Even if Nye Tion used the level 9 Chaos Beast, he would not be her match. Even if Nye Tion used the Extreme Demonic Destruction Seal, he would not be able to hurt the woman in white. It was obvious that the woman in white was far more powerful than the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy. Seal. In the next moment, the white-robed woman's eyes darkened, and she suddenly made a move. Space trembled, and a majestic and invisible force suddenly appeared, enveloping Nye Tion. You! Nye Tion's eyes trembled. He didn't expect that the white-clothed woman would suddenly attack him, and he cried out in alarm. He wanted to resist, but he felt the space around him freeze, and he was actually restrained by an enormous force, causing him to be unable to move in the slightest. Boom! The next moment, a strange force appeared in the space around him and entered Nye Tion's body, causing him to tremble. Nye Tion, Cher, Rui Qianyu, and the others cried out in shock. But the next moment, the woman in white waved her hand, and the invisible force disappeared. You! Nye Tion felt that the force in the space around him had disappeared. He looked cold at the woman in white and shouted, "You sealed my level 9 Chaos Beast." Just now, the woman in white had actually injected a seal into his body and sealed the level 9 Chaos Beast. Moreover, this seal was much stronger than the seal that the Ghost Emperor had used previously. Nye Tion could not feel the aura of the level 9 Chaos Beast at all. Didn't anyone tell you that the level 9 Chaos Beast cannot be used? The woman in white replied coldly. Her expression was cold and domineering. Nye Tion's face froze. He was speechless for a moment. This seal is to prevent you from using the level 9 Chaos Beast in the future. When your strength increases to the Saint Realm, the seal will be automatically removed, the woman in white said coldly. Are you helping me? Nietion's eyes narrowed. He could not help but ask, who exactly are you? Who I am is not a problem for you to consider now, the woman in white replied coldly. Then, she turned to look at Cher. She looked at her for a long time but did not say anything. At this time, Cher and Rui Chinyu came to Nietion's side. They looked a little nervous. Cher looked at the woman in white. Her beautiful eyes trembled for a long time. Finally, she said, who exactly are you? After running away for so long, the fate of the 3 lives reincarnation cycle is finally going to start. The woman in white looked at Cher. It was as if she did not hear what the latter had said. Instead, she laughed bitterly and spoke to herself. Who exactly are you? What are you talking about? Cher's beautiful eyes flickered. She could not understand what the woman in white was saying. My good sister, I've been hiding from you for so long. You've finally appeared. The woman in white laughed. Her smile looked so bitter. Little sister? Nietion went blank for a moment, his face filled with astonishment. Could this woman in white be Cher's sister? Twin sister? No. That could not be right. Even if they were twin sisters, they could not look so similar. The sister that the woman in white was talking about was definitely not the sister that ordinary people understood. What exactly was the relationship between her and Cher? And what was the fate of the 3 lives reincarnation cycle that she mentioned? Nietion had originally thought that Cher was just a kind body born from the heavenly demon's heart. But now, it seemed that the latter's background was far more complicated than he had imagined. Who exactly was this woman in white? From the woman in white's words, Nietion could hear a great deal of helplessness. It seemed that she had been avoiding Cher all along. She was so powerful. Why would she hide from Cher? Could it be that she was afraid of Cher? Everything, a huge mystery, circled around Nietion's heart. The more he thought about it, the more flustered he became. Just how big of a secret was Cher hiding behind her back? When Cher heard the woman in white's words, she stood rooted to the ground. Her pretty face was lifeless. It seemed like the shock was too great. Within her divine sense, there were too many memories that she had yet to unravel. The loss of her memories made it very simple for her to accept what was happening before her eyes. My good sister, I look forward to your growth. This time, I will not hide any more. Just then, the woman in white spoke again. The corner of her lips curled into a cold smile. Cher stared at the woman in white. Her eyes were trembling. She felt an inexplicable pain in her heart. It was as if her heart was being twisted by a knife. It was as if her soul was being torn apart piece by piece. Enough! Nietion's face darkened. He took a step forward and looked at the woman in white. I don't care who you are. If you dare to hurt Cher, I will kill you. The woman in white looked at Nietion. She was stunned for a moment. Then, a cold expression appeared on her face. She could not help but find it ridiculous that a 5th-grade demi-saint would threaten her so directly. If you want to kill me, you'll have to finish the divine choice path first. Then, the woman in white spoke coldly and looked at the Saint Envoy of Heaven's Choice. Venerable! The Saint Envoy of Heaven's Choice reacted immediately. He moved and approached the woman in white. However, he stopped when he was about 10,000 meters away from the woman. He bowed deeply and said nervously, Venerable, this brat destroyed the Divine Choice Path platform. He has a small world called 9 Extremities. The power of the Divine Choice Path platform has been absorbed by 9 extremities. In my opinion, we should just kill this brat. Chapter 30-38. Holy Vitality Blood Jade. The Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy had a cold look on his face as he suggested to the lady in white to kill Nietion. Kill him. The lady in white chuckled and shook her head. Is it worth it to kill a warrior with a level 9 Chaos Beast for the sake of a Heaven's Choice platform? Honorable, you mean? The Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy froze as his eyes flickered. Looking at the lady in white's reaction, she did not seem to want to kill Nietian. Your name is Nietian, right? The lady in white no longer looked at the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy. Instead, she fixed her gaze on Nietian. Nietian nodded calmly, a faint smile on his face. He could tell that the lady in white had no intention of killing him. If not, the lady in white would not have sealed his level 9 Chaos Beast. Nietian, let's make a bet. The lady in white chuckled and said. Her looks were exactly the same as Cher's, but their personalities were very different. Cher was pure and holy. While the lady in white had the same looks, her temperament was completely different. Not only was she not pure at all, she even gave off a flirtatious vibe. What bet? Nietian's eyes narrowed and he could not help but feel a little heated. He was thinking about how he could protect level 9. He was most afraid that the lady in white would use Cher or someone else to threaten him and force him to hand over level 9. As long as she was willing to bet, this was what he wanted to see. Bet on your level 9. The lady in white chuckled again and said, as long as you can become the Heaven's Choice Star Chief, level 9 will be yours. If you cannot, level 9 will be mine. Simple enough, right? Simple. I accept. Nietian laughed and agreed without hesitation. This bet was much simpler than he had imagined. Honorable Sir, this. Hearing the white-robed lady's words, the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy's face turned ugly. He wanted to say something but was stopped by the white-robed lady. I will be in charge of the Heaven's Choice's end from now on, the woman in white said calmly. Her tone was calm, but there was an undeniable dominance in it. Yes. The Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy paused for a moment before nodding his head. He then heaved a sigh of relief. Since the lady in white said this, it meant that she would be responsible for Nietian destroying the Heaven's Chosen Dao platform. Therefore, whether he won or lost the bet, the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy would not have to bear any responsibility. The second test of Heaven's Choice's end is the Heaven's Choice Hunt. It will begin in half a month, and the location will be in the Doomsday Forest. Now everyone, take a good rest. In half a month, we will head to the Doomsday Forest. The woman in white smiled faintly. Her gaze swept across everyone, and a strange light surged in her eyes. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Their taut nerves immediately relaxed. No one would have thought that Nietian's destruction of the Heaven's Chosen Path platform would end in such a way. Luckily, there was still half a month to go. Everyone could have a good rest. Honorable. However, at that moment, Nietian suddenly opened his mouth. He smiled faintly as he looked at the woman in white and said, previously, the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy said that the Heaven's Chosen Ones who step onto the Heaven's Chosen Path will receive additional rewards. Now, shouldn't you give me this reward? A calm voice rang out. However, everyone was stunned. The entire place fell into a dead silence. The atmosphere that had just calmed down became tense again. Who would have thought that Nietian would still think of an additional reward at this time? Brat, don't push your luck. The Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy was stunned at first. Then, she reacted and roared. She stared at Nietian, as if she wanted to skin him alive. The Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy had given Nietian a chance to make a bet. This was already a great gift. Yet, Nietian was still thinking of an additional reward. This was too much. Honorable Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy, you don't have to be so angry. Nietian's reaction was very calm. He smiled. It's true that I destroyed the Heaven's Choice platform. However, I did manage to climb the Heaven's Choice stairway. I deserve the additional reward. Unless, what the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy said before was just a joke. You. The Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy was so angry that his face turned red. He was speechless. If not for the fact that the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy was beside him, he would not have hesitated to attack and kill Nietian. This was the first time he had met such an arrogant chosen one. Honorable Sir, what I said just now was not wrong, right? Nie Tian laughed. He ignored the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy and turned to the lady in white. The lady in white frowned. She thought for a while and said to the Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy, "Envoy, give him the sacred origin blood jade." "Honorable sir, this." The Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy frowned. His face was ugly. He was reluctant to give it up. "Give it to him." The lady in white was a little angry and said coldly, "Yes." The Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy's face turned pale. He nodded and a blood-red jade appeared in his hand. He threw it to Nie Tian and said, "Kid, this is the sacred origin blood jade. It's your reward." Nie Tian caught the sacred origin blood jade. He instantly felt an extremely powerful saint force aura, causing his eyes to tremble. The sacred origin blood jade in his hand was not very big. It was only the size of a baby's palm. It was shaped like a cobblestone, but it was as red as blood. It also had a crystal-like glow. The scariest thing was that the sacred origin blood jade contained an extremely powerful saint force aura. It was very active, as if it had a life of its own. The others felt the strange aura circulating in the air. They could not help but tremble and discuss in low voices. "What is that? It looks like a piece of jade." "It's definitely not an ordinary piece of jade. I can feel the aura of a saint. That piece of jade is called the sacred origin blood jade. Could it be the blood of a saint?" The crowd discussed among themselves as they looked at the sacred origin blood jade with excitement. Since the Heaven's Choice Saint Origin Blood Jade was an additional reward, it proved that the sacred origin blood jade was an extremely ordinary item. "Sir Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy, can you explain what the sacred origin blood jade is and what it does?" Nie Tian smiled and asked the Saint Envoy. The Saint Envoy's face was so gloomy that it looked like blood was dripping from it. However, he still said, "The sacred origin blood jade is formed when a powerful saint realm cultivator dies. The saint blood essence is not destroyed. It seeps into the earth's core stone. After a long time, the saint blood essence and the earth's core stone fuse together and become the sacred origin blood jade." This. When the crowd heard the Saint Envoy's words, they could not help but be stunned. Who would have thought that the sacred origin blood jade really contained the blood of a saint? Nie Tian's eyes trembled. He was extremely happy. The sacred origin blood jade was similar to the dragon bloodstone. However, the dragon bloodstone contained the blood of a dragon, while the sacred origin blood jade contained the blood of a saint. The most precious part of the sacred origin blood jade is not the blood of a saint. It is the earth's core stone. At this moment, the lady in white opened her mouth and said, "The earth's core stone is a mysterious stone of the heavens and earth. It is called the immortal stone. Even a peak saint realm powerhouse cannot destroy the earth's core stone. Only a peak saint realm powerhouse's blood can seep into the earth's core stone and fuse with it to become the sacred origin blood jade. Even in the holy world, the sacred origin blood jade is an extremely rare item." When the crowd heard the lady in white's words, their expressions froze. They were extremely shocked. Chapter 30-39. The Immortal Stone. The Immortal Stone is amazing. Nie Tian's eyes narrowed slightly. He was excited, but he remained calm on the surface. He asked the lady in white with a faint smile, "Venerable, what's the use of the sacred origin blood jade?" The sacred origin blood jade was formed by fusing the earth core stone with the blood of a sage. Moreover, it was the blood of a peak sage realm powerhouse. The power contained in it could be imagined. However, Nie Tian could only sense the power of the sacred origin blood jade. He couldn't absorb the power within it. Not only does the sacred origin blood jade contain powerful energy, but it also contains a connate sacred array, the lady in white said with a faint smile. "Connate sacred array? What's that?" Everyone was stunned. They didn't understand what that meant. When Nie Tian heard the words connate sacred array, his eyes trembled. He was pleasantly surprised. Of course, he knew what a connate sacred array was. To put it bluntly, It was a connate great array nurtured by heaven and earth. Previously, Nye Tian comprehended the sacred heaven-defying sword in the Trinity Great Array. The Trinity Great Array was a connate sacred array. He didn't expect a small piece of sacred origin blood jade to contain a connate sacred holy array. However, he didn't know what the connate sacred array in the sacred origin blood jade was and what it did. The connate sacred array in the sacred origin blood jade is called the Sacred Origin Great Array. The lady in white clearly wasn't interested in explaining what a connate sacred array was. She said directly, when the Sacred Origin Great Array is activated, it can form a sacred realm. Furthermore, it can absorb the energy in the surrounding space and bring it into the Great Array. Amazing! Everyone's eyes trembled as they marveled. After the Sacred Origin Great Array was activated, the space within the Great Array would turn into a sacred realm. This was indeed terrifying. If a cultivator entered the Sacred Origin Great Array, it would be equivalent to cultivating in a sacred realm. Nye Tian couldn't help but feel a little disappointed when he heard the lady in white's words. Frankly speaking, the Sacred Origin Blood Jade was a mobile great array that could turn the surrounding space into a sacred realm. It didn't sound much different from an ordinary great array. Nye Tian's 9 extremes would soon become a true holy world, so the temptation of Saint Origin bloodstones wasn't that great. Nye Tian, don't talk nonsense with this little girl, she doesn't know the use of Saint Essence Blood Jade. At that moment, Fat Cat suddenly laughed and said, When Nye Tian heard Fat Cat's words, he couldn't help frowning. Did this Saint Chi Blood Jade have other uses? Put away the Saint Origin Blood Jade first, this senior will show you the great use of this Blood Jade in the future. Fat Cat smiled proudly and said no more. Yes. Nye Tian nodded and put away the Saint Essence Blood Jade, not forgetting to say to the woman in white, Many thanks, Venerable. The white-robed woman's beautiful eyes flickered, but she didn't say anything. Following this, everyone calmed down and began to rest, waiting for the doomsday hunt to begin. Nye Tian comforted Cher, then thanked Feng Qi, EMO, and the others. On the Heaven's Choice platform, if it wasn't for EMO and the others, Nye Tian would be in trouble. Your Highness, thank you. Of course, Nye Tian didn't forget to thank Yuluo, so he smiled faintly. Although Yuluo came for his star origin stone, it was a fact that she helped him after all. So, are we friends now? Yuluo smiled sweetly and said, We can be considered friends, I hope we don't have to fall out with each other in the future. Nye Tian nodded and smiled faintly. Following this, all the Heaven's chosen ones entered a state of cultivation. Especially those who had reached the 3 gates of black and yellow, they began to absorb the power of the black and yellow seeds to further increase their strength. Very quickly, half a month passed. All the Heaven's chosen ones stood up, and most of them had increased their strength by a lot. Even those who didn't manage to reach the 3 gates of black and yellow, after going through the tempering of the Heaven's Choice platform, had increased their strength. As for those who had reached the 3 gates of black and yellow, their strength had increased tremendously. Cher and Rui Qinyu's strength had increased from stage 9 demi-saint to stage 2 demi-saint. Feng Qi and EMO had both advanced from stage 1 demi-saint to stage 6 demi-saint. Nye Tian's strength did not increase. When he was at the pinnacle of black and yellow, he had already absorbed the power of the seed of black and yellow. Now, the power absorbed by the blood seal of the Holy Spirit was still being refined. At this time, everyone's eyes were on the Heaven's chosen ones. The doomsday hunt was about to begin, and everyone still didn't know the rules of the hunt. Dear Heaven's chosen ones, let me introduce the rules of the doomsday hunt. The Heaven's chosen ones said faintly and began to introduce the rules of the doomsday hunt. The doomsday hunt was actually a hunt that took place in the doomsday jungle. The doomsday jungle was a sealed space, and there lived a strange creature called the Doomsday Devourer. What the Heaven's chosen ones wanted to hunt was the Doomsday Devourer. According to their strength, the Doomsday Devourers were divided into Heaven Devourers, Earth Devourers, and human devourers. Killing a human devourer would earn a Heaven's Chosen 1 point. Killing an Earth devourer would earn a Heaven's Chosen 5 point. Killing a Heaven devourer would earn a Heaven's Chosen 10 point. After introducing the simple rules, the Heaven's Chosen Ones turned to look at the Doomsday Messengers. The Doomsday Messengers took out their Heaven's Chosen tokens and handed them to their Heaven's Chosen Ones. Everyone, the Heaven's Chosen tokens in your hands have recorded your points from the Heaven's Chosen Tao platform. After killing a devourer, as long as you put the devourer's beast core into the Heaven's Chosen token, your points will automatically increase, the Heaven's Chosen Ones said faintly. Looks like this Heaven's Chosen token also has the function of a space ring. Nia Tian sensed the Heaven's Chosen token and smiled faintly. Sir Chosen Ones, during the Doomsday Hunt, can we kill other Heaven's Chosen Ones? At this time, a loud voice suddenly sounded. Everyone was stunned for a moment and looked towards the source of the voice. The person who had asked the question was Shadow Fire Ruinous Star from the Juying Temple. Nia Tian looked at Shadow Fire Ruinous Star and frowned. When the latter spoke, his cold eyes were staring at him, not concealing his killing intent at all. Shadow Fire Ruinous Star's words caused all the Heaven's Chosen Ones to be stunned, especially the weaker ones. Their eyes couldn't help but tremble. If the Heaven's Chosen Ones were allowed to kill each other, then this hunt would be extremely bloody. Yes. The Heaven's Chosen Ones smiled faintly and said loudly, the Heaven's Chosen tokens can be fused with each other to stack their points. However, each Heaven's Chosen token can only be fused with 3 other Heaven's Chosen Ones. In other words, each Heaven's Chosen can kill 3 other Heaven's Chosen Ones and obtain the points in their tokens. Very good. Shadow Flame Ruinous Star laughed as he stared at Nia Tian with a pair of grim eyes. In this Doomsday Hunt, his target wasn't the Devourer, but Nia Tian. Looks like this hunt is going to be fun. Nia Tian looked at Shadow Fire Ruinous Star and couldn't help but laugh bitterly. Everyone, this Doomsday Hunt is different from the past. Apart from hunting the Devourer, there's also the biggest prey. At this time, the Heaven's Chosen One spoke again, his cold eyes looking at Nia Tian. He pointed at him and said loudly, during the hunt, the Heaven's Chosen One who kills Nia Tian will receive 100 points. Chapter 30-40. 3 Suns in the Sky. Heaven's Chosen Honorable's words made everyone's gaze turn to Nia Tian. Their eyes were filled with greed and passion. Nia Tian was in the limelight during the Heaven's Chosen platform test. He even destroyed the Heaven's Chosen platform, which made many people unhappy with him. But now, Heaven's Chosen Honorable had turned Nia Tian into the biggest prey of the Doomsday Hunt. He was obviously asking all the Heaven's Chosen Ones to hunt him down. Huh! Nia Tian's eyes narrowed and his face darkened. He had never thought that Heaven's Chosen Honorable, who had a mysterious connection with Cher, would be so ruthless and come up with such a vicious method to deal with him. No wonder Heaven's Chosen Honorable dared to make a bet with Nia Tian. It turned out that he had already thought of this. Nia Tian had become the biggest prey. He would definitely be hunted down by all the Heaven's Chosen Ones. The Doomsday Hunt would definitely be a brutal fight. Honorable, you are targeting me so openly. It doesn't follow the rules of the Heaven's Chosen path. Nia Tian laughed and said to Heaven's Chosen Honorable, I am Heaven's Chosen Honorable. My words are the rules. Heaven's Chosen Honorable replied coldly and domineeringly. Nia Tian smiled bitterly and did not say anything else. Next, Heaven's Chosen Honorable and Heaven's Chosen Envoy brought everyone to the Doomsday Forest. Soon, everyone came to a place high up in the sky. The figure of the Heaven's Chosen Saint Envoy moved and stepped into the air. Everyone's eyes trembled as they looked at Heaven's Chosen Envoy. Heaven's Chosen Envoy stood in the sky and formed a seal with his hands. Boom! Creak, creak, creak. Following that, a tremendous force appeared in the sky, directly tearing space and time apart. A spatial crack that was thousands of meters long appeared, as if a huge monster hibernating in the void had opened its dark mouth. When the crowd saw this, they were shocked beyond words. Tian frowned. He could obviously tell that the crack in front of him was actually a space-time door. However, he never expected that the Doomsday Forest would actually be in another space. Everyone, the Doomsday Crack will be open for 1 month. After 1 month, the Heaven's Chosen token in your hands will remind you. At that time, as long as you activate the Heaven's Chosen token, you will be able to come out. The Heaven's Chosen Saint glanced at the crowd and calmly said, "Now, please." At this moment, everyone was somewhat afraid. Many people subconsciously retreated, unwilling to enter. That spatial crack looked too terrifying, as if it wanted to devour people. "A bunch of trash, let me do it." At this moment, a berserk voice rang out, following which a figure walked out. It was Shadowflame Ruiner. Everyone's eyes widened. Shadowflame Ruinous Star took a step forward, entering the spatial rift and disappearing. "Everyone, what are you waiting for?" The Heaven's Choice Saint Envoy shouted at everyone. Only then did everyone calm down. They slowly approached the spatial rift and entered it. Tian smiled faintly and followed the crowd, preparing to enter the spatial crack. He wanted to be together with Cher and the rest. However, as he neared the spatial crack, he realized that the moment every chosen one entered the crack, the space-time aura would change. Seems like everyone will be separated after entering the Doomsday Forest. Tian's lips twitched as he laughed bitterly. This way, he would not be able to be together with Cher and the rest. However, this was good as well. He would not have to implicate the others. After entering the Doomsday Forest, he would be the biggest prey. Many people would try their best to find him. If Cher and the rest followed him, it would instead be troublesome. Cher and Rui Qinyu were already second-rank pseudo-holiness. With their talent, there were very few who could defeat them out of the tens of thousands of chosen ones. As for Feng Qi and Emo, Tian did not have to worry about them. The only one he was worried about was Si Xiaoye. She was the weakest and did not have much combat strength. If she met a powerful chosen one, she would be in danger. Tian, don't worry. I have a special method to find Xiaoyu. After entering the Doomsday Forest, I will find her quickly. Feng Qi saw through Tian's worries and walked up with a smile. Tian nodded slightly, feeling much more at ease. Next, Cher and the rest entered the spatial crack one after another, disappearing in an instant. Tian waited for the others to enter before stepping in and disappearing as well. At the same time, in a different world, Tian's figure appeared, standing high in the sky. Is this the Doomsday Jungle? Tian looked around, his brows furrowed in confusion. The space here was very strange. Tian felt as if he were in a furnace, and the temperature was incomparably hot. 3 suns in the sky. Just then, Fat Cat's voice rang out. Tian went blank for a moment. Then, he looked up into the sky, and what he saw caused his expression to freeze. High in the sky, the sun hung high like a ball of fire. The strangest thing was that there were 3 suns in the sky. 3 suns, no wonder it's so hot. Moments later, Tian became colder and mumbled. Although the surroundings were burning like fire, with his capabilities, he could completely endure it. Then, Tian looked down and a forest that looked like a sea of fire appeared before his eyes. He moved and approached the forest below. Giant trees towered into the sky, but the tops of the trees were bare. There were no leaves, only flames. Interesting. Tian leaped down and landed on a giant tree. He couldn't help but smile. He realized that on these giant trees, there was a layer of fire energy that gathered at the top of the tree and became flames. No wonder the forest looked like a sea of fire when seen from the sky. Tian, take out the Saint Vitality Blood Jade. At this moment, Fat Cat seemed to have discovered something and said excitedly. Saint Vitality Blood Jade? Tian was stunned. He didn't know why Fat Cat wanted him to take out the Saint Vitality Blood Jade at this time. But he still took it out. He didn't know what to do. Drip a drop of your blood on the Saint Vitality Blood Jade, Fat Cat said excitedly. Tian frowned, but he still did as he was told. He dripped a drop of blood from his fingertip onto the Saint Vitality Blood Jade. It disappeared directly as if it was absorbed by the Blood Jade. Tian couldn't help but stare at this scene. He didn't know what happened. In the next moment, he suddenly found that on the Saint Vitality Blood Jade, there was a thin rune that was dazzling. What's this? Tian went blank for a moment, then gasped with astonishment. Go under the tree. Fat Cat didn't answer Tian but said hurriedly. Tian didn't know what Fat Cat wanted to do, but he didn't hesitate. He moved and went under the tree. Tian, use your demon eye to look. Where is the eye of the three-sun tree? Then, Fat Cat's voice sounded again, and this time, it was even more excited. Tian was stunned again. So this giant tree was called the three-sun tree, and there was a tree eye. He calmed down and opened his demon eye to scan the entire three-sun tree. He couldn't help but be stunned. This three-sun tree turned out to be a great array. Chapter 30-41. Heaven and Earth Saint Rune, phew! Tian let out a long breath and forced himself to calm down. Although he didn't know what Fat Cat was going to do, for Fat Cat to be so excited, it must be something extraordinary. It's here. Soon, Tian found the eye of the Three Suns tree. It was at the center of the trunk. Open the trunk and put the Saint Essence Blood Jade into the eye. Fat Cat became even more excited and said nervously, Okay. Tian nodded. Starlight Heavenly Slash appeared in his hand. He slashed down and broke the trunk. Then, he put the Saint Essence Blood Jade into the eye. Buzz. At this moment, a strange sound was heard. What happened next left Tian dumbfounded. He saw that the power of the array formation in the three-sun tree was absorbed by the Saint Essence Blood Jade in an instant. Without the protection of the array formation, the three-sun tree burst into flames and turned into ashes in the blink of an eye. Tian was stunned by the scene in front of him and was speechless. So that's how it is. At this moment, little Fat Cat started laughing maniacally. Little cat, you are indeed a genius. You even discovered this. At the same time, the Ghost Emperor's voice rang out. He laughed excitedly. Tian was dumbfounded. He didn't know what Fat Cat and the Ghost Emperor had discovered. Tian, take a look at the Saint Essence Blood Jade. Is there any change? Fat Cat finally calmed down after laughing for a long time and said excitedly. Tian held the Saint Essence Blood Jade and observed it carefully. He didn't find anything strange. Look carefully and sense carefully. Fat Cat wasn't in a hurry and said with a smile. Tian frowned. He stared at the Saint Essence Blood Jade for a long time but still didn't find any changes. Sigh. The Fat Cat was speechless, then sighed and said, Tian, this entire Doomsday Jungle is actually a giant formation, great formation? Tian frowned. He still didn't understand and asked in surprise, what about the Great Formation? The Doomsday Forest was an alternate world that was similar to the Nine Extreme world. Even if it was just a formation, there was nothing special about it. Furthermore, a large array was a world of its own. For Tian, such a thing was no longer strange. Back when he entered the Ghost Emperor's tomb, it was also a grand array. This formation is a sacred realm. Every three-sun tree is a formation pattern. Fat Cat smiled proudly and continued. Tian frowned and his face froze. He originally thought that the three-sun tree was a grand array, but he didn't expect that the real grand array was this world, and the three-sun tree was just a formation pattern. So what? But then, Tian frowned again, his face full of doubt. Just now, the Saint Essence Blood Jade instantly absorbed a three-sun tree, which is a formation pattern. Don't you find it strange? Fat Cat asked with a smile. It is very strange. Nye Tian nodded and said, but the Saint Primal Blood Jade didn't undergo any changes after absorbing the spell formation. Idiot. Fat Cat was so angry that she screamed and said, of course the Saint Essence Blood Jade changed, you just didn't see it. One of the Heaven and Earth Saint runes on the Saint Essence Blood Jade has been activated. Heaven and Earth Saint rune? Nye Tian was stunned for a moment, then he thought of something and said, is it that golden rune? Yes. Fat Cat nodded and said, that golden rune is the Heaven and Earth Saint rune. Nye Tian frowned and forced himself to calm down. He then asked, what is a Heaven and Earth Saint rune? Is it useful? Fat Cat was speechless for a long time. Nye Tian's current strength was not enough to understand the Heaven and Earth Saint runes. After thinking for a while, Fat Cat said, you don't need to know what a Heaven and Earth Saint rune is. All you need to know is that the Saint Essence Blood Jade contains 9 Heaven and Earth Saint runes, and the power of each Heaven and Earth Saint rune is enough to make a cultivator who has just awakened their Yuan meridians directly ascend to a saint. This. Nye Tian was stunned and his whole body froze. His mouth was wide open, but he could not make a sound for a long time. He could not believe his ears. What had he just heard? The power of a Heaven and Earth Saint rune could make an Yuan meridian cultivator directly ascend to a saint. This was too terrifying. What exactly was a Heaven and Earth Saint rune? How could it have such terrifying power? And Fat Cat said that there were 9 Heaven and Earth Saint runes in the Saint Essence Blood Jade. 9 Heaven and Earth Saint runes. Didn't that mean that there were 9 saints? Thinking of this, Nye Tian completely froze on the spot and did not react for a long time. No wonder Fat Cat and Ghost Emperor were so excited just now. After a full 10 seconds, Nye Tian finally calmed down. He gulped and asked with blazing eyes, Fat, since one of the Heaven and Earth Saint runes in the Saint Essence Blood Jade has been activated, does that mean that I can directly become a saint if I absorb this Heaven and Earth Saint rune? Since a Heaven and Earth Saint rune was enough to make an Yuan meridian cultivator directly ascend to a saint, and Nye Tian was already a demi-saint at the 5th stage. Absorbing a Heaven and Earth Saint rune should make it easy for him to become a saint. You're thinking too simply. However, Fat Cat's face darkened. The Heaven and Earth Saint runes are imprisoned in the Saint Essence Blood Jade. How can they be so easily unsealed? A drop of your blood and the power of a rune can only activate and reveal the Heaven and Earth Saint rune. To unseal the Heaven and Earth Saint rune, you need more power. Ugh! Nye Tian's face darkened. He had been excited for nothing. However, in the next moment, his eyes trembled and he asked, Fat, what kind of power can unseal the Heaven and Earth Saint rune? The power of the Heaven's Choice platform should be enough to unseal one Heaven and Earth Saint rune, Fat Cat said after thinking for a while. Nye Tian's face stiffened and he was speechless for a long time. The power of the Heaven's Choice platform was something that even the 9 extremities could not withstand. It was ridiculous that such a great power could only unseal one Heaven and Earth Saint rune. Looks like I'm overthinking it. Nye Tian shook his head and put away the Saint Essence Blood Jade. Nye Tian, are you thinking of unsealing the Heaven and Earth Saint rune? Fat Cat laughed and asked. Of course. Nye Tian replied without hesitation. Actually, there is a way to unseal the Heaven and Earth Saint rune. Fat Cat smiled strangely and said, Right now I have an idea. What idea? Nye Tian's eyes trembled, and they were burning with passion. The idea is above your head. Fat Cat chuckled. Above my head? Nye Tian was stunned. He looked up into the sky and saw the 3 suns again. His pupils shrank and he understood. The idea Fat Cat mentioned was the 3 suns. Immediately, Nye Tian became cold. Just as he was about to say something, he felt something and his expression changed. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. In the next moment, 3 air-piercing sounds were heard. 3 figures that looked like fireballs appeared and landed on the 3 sun trees. Chapter 3042. Doomsday Devourer. Nyetian couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air when he saw the figures on the 3 giant trees. The 3 figures looked like wolves. They weren't very big, only about 5 or 6 meters tall. Their bodies were completely black, and their bodies were burning with blazing flames. Their eyes were extremely red, and they emitted an extremely violent and vicious aura. These are Doomsday Devourers. Nyetian's heart sank. He did not dare to be careless. He used his divine sense to sense that the aura of each Doomsday Devourer was not weaker than a low-level pseudo-sage. Previously, the Heaven's Chosen One, who looked like Cher, had said that the Doomsday Devourers were divided into 3 levels according to their strength. From high to low, they were Heaven-level Devourer, Earth-level Devourer, and Human-level Devourer. The Heaven's Chosen One's goal in entering the Doomsday Jungle was to hunt Doomsday Devourers. Killing Doomsday Devourers of the Earth, Heaven, and Human level would give 10, 5, and 1 point respectively. Nyetian found it strange at that time. Were the Doomsday Devourers so terrifying? Why could one obtain so many points by killing one Doomsday Devourer? One must know that during the Heaven's Chosen Dao platform test, Heaven's Chosen One could only obtain 8 or 9 points. Only by stepping on the Heaven's Chosen Heavenly Stairway could one obtain 20 points. Stepping onto the Heaven's Yellow Stairway was already breaking the record of the Heaven's Chosen End. However, such a feat was only equivalent to killing 2 Heaven-rank Devourers. One could imagine how powerful a Heaven-level Devourer was. Nyetian estimated that the 3 Doomsday Devourers in front of him could not be Heaven-level Devourers because they were too weak. It was also unlikely that they were Human-level Devourers because their strength had already reached low-level Pseudo-Sage. These should be Earth-level Devourers. Nyetian's eyes trembled as he thought to himself. At that moment the little fat cat's voice rang out, warning Nyetian, "Be careful, Nyetian. There's something strange about those 3 little bastards." Nyetian was stunned. He did not understand Fat Cat's words. They were just Doomsday Devourers. How strange could they be? Weren't they similar to other beasts? Woo! At this moment, one of the Doomsday Devourers let out a low roar, revealing a pair of blazing fangs. After which, its silhouette flickered, akin to an arrow released from a bow, shooting towards Nyetian with extreme speed. Nyetian's eyes narrowed. He had not expected the Doomsday Devourer to be so fast. In the next instant, he subconsciously shook his body and activated the Heavenly Water Ultimate Armor. His 9 extremities War God Art had already been cultivated to the 3rd stage, the Extreme Water Origin Heavenly Realm. The Water Pole Yuan armor was like a layer of transparent water that covered Nyetian's body. This seemingly thin layer possessed extremely powerful defensive prowess. It was more than enough to withstand a frontal attack from a low-level pseudo-sage being. Swoosh! Whoosh! In the next moment, the Doomsday Devourer brandished its claws in the air, and 2 flaming blades appeared, instantly striking the water pole's Heavenly Yuan armor. Nyetian felt a scorching aura rushing towards him. Then, a powerful impact fell upon him, forcing him to retreat repeatedly. His Origin Water Extreme Heavenly Battle Armor actually shattered on the spot. The sudden scene caused him to exclaim in bewilderment, and shock appeared on his face. He had not expected the Doomsday Devourer's attack to be so powerful. Woo! Woo! Then, before he could regain his balance, the other 2 figures in the sky swooped down like a burning black vortex. Their auras were extremely violent and murderous. Sacred heaven-defying sword, Earth's sword engulfs the moon. In an instant, Nyetian reacted. The starlight heavenly slash appeared in his hand, and he slashed out with it. A huge sword shadow rushed towards the sky like a raging dragon. Boom! The void rumbled as the sword shadow landed on the 2 Doomsday Devourers, but it suddenly stopped. Nyetian was surprised again. he saw that the sword's shadow was blocked by the two Doomsday Devourers before it even landed. The power of the formation. At this moment, Nye Tian saw the runes of the formation appearing around the Doomsday Devourers. It was the power of the formation that blocked his sword's shadow. This was something that Nye Tian did not expect, and he could not help but be stunned. Roar! Roar! Right at this moment, the two Doomsday Devourers roared. The runes around them suddenly became berserk, and the power of the formation was released crazily. Boom! Boom! Bang bang bang! Then, the terrifying power of the formation surged in the air. The sword's shadow was unable to withstand the impact and collapsed with a loud bang. Nye Tian's body swayed, and he retreated continuously. At this moment, he felt a powerful force coming at him from behind. In the next moment, before he could react, a horrifying wound appeared on his back. It was so deep that his bones could be seen, and blood spurted out, instantly soaking half of his body. He suddenly turned around and saw that the Doomsday Devourer who had attacked first was staring at him fiercely, incomparably ferocious. Nye Tian frowned. Only now did he realize that he had underestimated the Doomsday Devourer's strength. How could he have imagined that the Doomsday Devourers also had the power of the formation? No wonder Fat Cat said that these little bastards were strange. Bang! At this moment, the other two Doomsday Devourers landed on the ground and stared fiercely at Nye Tian. The three Doomsday Devourers actually surrounded Nye Tian, and their mouths were drooling. Obviously, they regarded Nye Tian as delicious food. Three little bastards, do you really think I'm easy to bully? Nye Tian stood still, and his lips curled into a cold smile. The 9 dragon veins in his body circulated, and the wound on his back began to heal. The wound caused by the Doomsday Devourers seemed to have a devouring aura, and it was difficult to heal. Fortunately, Nye Tian's martial body was strong, or it would have been troublesome. Just now, Nye Tian had been careless, and the 3 little bastards had caught him off guard. But now, he was really angry. Nye Tian, don't kill them. Capture them alive. Just as Nye Tian was about to slaughter the 3 Doomsday Devourers, Fat Cat's voice sounded, and it said in a deep voice, "Capture them alive?" Nye Tian's eyes narrowed and his face sank, but he still nodded. Since Fat Cat wanted to live, he must have his reasons. Moreover, Nye Tian also felt that the Doomsday Devourers had the power of the formation, and it was very strange. Woo! 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 At that moment, the 3 Doomsday Devourers roared at the same time, and 3 figures moved at the same time, pouncing at Nye Tian from 3 different directions. However, there was no fear on Nye Tian's face. Instead, the corner of his mouth twitched, and a cold smile appeared on his face. He had already expected this, so he had prepared in advance. Whoosh! 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 Nye Tian stood on the spot, unmoving like a mountain. His body shook, and immediately, 9 bone-eroding soul-shackling chains surged out, and like giant claws, they formed groups of 3, and shrouded the 3 Doomsday Devourers. Whoosh! Whoosh! The 3 Doomsday Devourers were still in midair, but they were firmly bound by the bone-eroding soul-shackling chains. Chapter 30-43. One still, one moving awu. The 3 Doomsday Devourers let out shrill cries as the power of the array around them was forcibly suppressed by the bone-corroding soul-refining chains. Nye Tian frowned. He did not dare to be careless and tightened the bone-corroding soul-refining chains. The power of the Doomsday Devourers was very strong. He could feel a strong resistance. Fat! Nye Tian shouted. He did not know why the Fat Cat did not let him kill the Doomsday Devourers directly. Nye Tian sensed carefully. Are these Doomsday Devourers the same as the 3 Suns tree? The Fat Cat said solemnly, its eyes burning with a burning light. Same. Nye Tian was stunned. How could the 3 Suns tree be the same as the Doomsday Devourers? However, he still used his divine sense to sense it and immediately felt a familiar aura, array patterns. The aura of array patterns. Nietion's eyes suddenly narrowed in horror. He had actually sensed the aura of an array pattern on the Doomsday Devourer's body. This array pattern aura was very similar to the array pattern aura he had sensed on the Three-Sun Tree. However, there was an additional ruthless aura, and it was clearly stronger. These Doomsday Devourers are the same as the Three Suns Tree. They are also array patterns. Nietion reacted in the next moment. His eyes trembled as he exclaimed. He immediately understood. The Doomsday Devourers were actually array patterns. No wonder the fat cat did not let him kill these Doomsday Devourers directly. Nietion, find where the array patterns in these little bastards converge, the fat cat said solemnly, its eyes burning with passion. Okay. Nietion nodded heavily. He opened his demon eye and soon found that the array patterns converged at the center of the Doomsday Devourer's foreheads. It's here. The corners of Nietion's mouth twitched. With a thought, the bone-corroding soul-refining chains immediately moved and directly blasted open the center of the Doomsday Devourer's forehead. Stepping forward, Yang Kai placed the Saint Chi blood jade near the bloody hole in the Doomsday Devourer's forehead. Immediately, the power of the spirit array gushed out and was absorbed by the blood jade. Suddenly, the Doomsday Devourer lost its runes, and its aura weakened significantly. Nietion smiled faintly. With a thought, the bone-corroding soul-shackling chain took out the Doomsday Devourer's beast core. He placed the beast core into the Heaven's Choice token, but his expression immediately stiffened as he exclaimed in astonishment, "Human-grade Devourer." Now that the beast core had entered the Heaven's Choice token, his points had increased by 1 point. Didn't that mean that the Doomsday Devourer he had just killed was a human-grade devourer? Nietion couldn't help but frown at this discovery, and his expression froze. The Doomsday Devourer in front of him had terrifying combat strength. It was much stronger than ordinary low-level false saint. Nietion originally thought that it was an Earth-class devourer, but he did not expect it to be a human-class devourer. If a human-class devourer was already this powerful, then how powerful would an Earth-class devourer and a Heaven-class devourer be? Nietion finally understood why killing a Heaven-class devourer would give him 10 points. He guessed that a Heaven-class devourer's combat strength was definitely close to a high-level false saint, or even a peak false saint. This Doomsday Hunt was not for the Heavens chosen to hunt the Doomsday Devourers, but for the Doomsday Devourers to hunt the Heavens chosen. Although these Heavens chosen were all martial arts geniuses in the myriad regions, they were all very young after all. Most of them were below the false saint level. After the Doomsday Hunt ended, it would be very good if 1/10 of the Heavens chosen were left. This Doomsday Hunt was more dangerous than Nietion had imagined. Then, Nietion used the same method to kill the other 2 Doomsday Devourers. After the Saint Origin Blood Jade absorbed the runes in the bodies of the 3 Doomsday Devourers, the aura of the Heaven and Earth Saint runes became much stronger. Nietion looked at the thin golden Tao pattern in the Saint Origin Blood Jade and slowly probed it with his divine sense. His face was filled with shock. Although the golden Tao pattern looked very small, after probing it with his divine sense, the aura inside was very vast, as if it contained a vast world. The Heaven and Earth Saint runes contain 3,000 great Taos. The aura you sense is only the most superficial power of the Heaven and Earth Saint runes. The fat cat smiled faintly and said, "It's definitely not an easy task to completely unseal the Heaven and Earth Saint runes." Nietion retracted his divine sense, and his eyes couldn't help but tremble as he asked, "Fat, didn't you just say that you have a way to unseal the Heaven and Earth Saint runes? Haven't you already guessed my method?" The fat cat smiled and said indifferently, "Are you really going to absorb the power of those 3 suns?" Nietion's eyes trembled as he looked at the 3 suns in the sky again. "Nietion, do you know what the essence of the sun is?" The fat cat smiled again and asked. "I don't know." Nietion shook his head with a puzzled expression. The essence of the sun is the star. The fat cat nodded and said, "The sun contains an extremely violent flame power, which is why this world is so hot." Can the flame power of the three suns unlock the heaven and earth saint runes? Nye Tian didn't quite understand the fat cat's words, so he asked directly. "It's enough." The fat cat nodded and said, "The power of the three suns is enough to unlock 3 heaven and earth saint runes." 3. Nye Tian's eyes trembled as he exclaimed excitedly. 1 heaven and earth saint rune meant 1 saint. 3 heaven and earth saint runes meant 3 saint. How could he not be excited? After a while, Nye Tian became cold and asked with a burning gaze, "Fat, how can we absorb the power of the 3 suns? This world called Doomsday Forest is a large formation. If I'm not wrong, the 3 suns are the source of the formation's power. If we want to absorb the power of the entire formation, we have to find the core of the formation." The fat cat frowned and said solemnly, "Core of the formation." When Nye Tian heard this, his eyes couldn't help but burn with a burning light. The Doomsday Formation in front of us is very cleverly designed. There are 2 kinds of Tao patterns in the formation. One is static, which is the 3 sun tree, and the other is moving, which is the Doomsday Devourer. The fat cat continued, "I guess that the core of the formation is most likely in the body of a Doomsday Devourer. And this Doomsday Devourer must be very strong, at least at the peak of the false saint realm, or even at the saint realm." When Nye Tian heard the fat cat's words, his face couldn't help but stiffen, and he couldn't speak for a long time. The Doomsday Formation's formation was indeed very clever. It was the 3 sun tree and the Doomsday Devourer. Every 3 sun tree and every Doomsday Devourer was a formation pattern. A human-level Devourer was already so powerful. The strength of the Doomsday Devourer at the core of the formation was simply unimaginable. Nye Tian, this matter can't be forced. There's no need to be in a hurry to unseal the heaven and earth saint runes, the fat cat said solemnly. Its mood was obviously much gloomier. "How do we know if we don't try?" Nye Tian didn't give up. He laughed and said, "Anyway, we have a month's time. There's no rush. Let's try and see if we can find the core of the formation." When the fat cat heard Nye Tian's words, it couldn't help but stare and shake its head.